You guys, I always start this freaking out and nothing is going to change whatsoever. I'm here to freak out because it is Thor's Day. It is the day of all days. And if you're now watching the show for the first time, you need to make this a chronic behavior because Thor's Day is the coolest freaking day in the world. We're going to talk about why that is very shortly, but let's give you guys an introduction to THORChain. So for those who haven't heard the good word, THORChain is the world's leading Bitcoin DEX. You can swap 11 different blockchains across 40 different pools, soon more, without using bridges or wrap tokens. Check it out at swap.thorchain.org. Swap.thorchain.org. Anyone in the world can use THORChain. There is no account to open, no KYC required, and privacy is a human right. THORChain has two tokens. That's Rune and TCY. The fees for swapping on THORChain are paid in Rune, and that's where the yield comes from. The fees are deducted from swap, so you don't need to own Rune to trade on THORChain. Pretty cool. THORChain's token is currently deflationary as well, with 5% of the revenue is being burned. 10% of protocol revenue goes to TCY token holders. Always remember to stake the TCY tokens in order to collect that yield. There are no block rewards on THORChain. The protocol's revenue is real money paid by real users. THORChain is more than just a DEX. It is a programmable layer 1 with the ability to create decentralized apps on it, you guys. This app layer is being developed by Rujira. If you need help with THORChain in general, join the THORChain community Discord and Telegram groups. Links for those are on thorchain.org, thorchain.org. And guys, please follow THORChain on Facebook and Instagram. THORChain contact, all one word, on TikTok. We need 1,000 followers to live stream on those platforms. Let's get it done. And always remember, this podcast is for informational and educational purpose and does not constitute financial investment or legal advice. You guys, it is that time to start the show. Here we go. My name is Denny. I go by Patriot Sounds. I love doing this. I'm addicted. We have some big news to drop. I'm really excited to talk about it, but I'm going to kick it to my main man, Kenton, for an update, if applicable. How you doing, Kenton?
I'm good. Thanks, Denny. Yeah, a bit of an update. CoinGecko and Gecko Terminal. Now we've got the THORChain trading data. So all the trading pairs, the data is live. So go check it out, make sure it's working. Let me know if you find any bugs there. That took about 10 weeks. So I'm not saying it was 10 weeks of work. It was like a week or two of work, and then we go in their queue, and we didn't pay to get it, to get on right away, so we had to wait. Basically, I think it's just an arbitrary time, but they honored it. So after the 8 weeks were up, then we're live now. So I think Gecko Terminal I might have to get some of the logos, icons updated there. Yeah. Well, if you want to see something, Denny, I'm going to try some more gray hat marketing. How do I do this? Look up Bitcoin, if you don't mind. Yeah, and then click on markets. And then at see, it says the tabs at the top. It has all, sex, and DEX. If you click on DEX, there you go. And then sort by volume. Okay, we do see THORChain. Anyway, this is good enough. So notice there's DEX a lot, so DEX, LN Exchange. There's all these, and if you sort by 24-hour volume, Change Now comes up. I'm going to try some gray hat marketing. See if I can get CoinGecko to remove these so-called DEXs, and so we'll see how that goes. But because Chainflip is fine, right? We're okay with that. We acknowledge that one. Obviously, Maya, but Change Now isn't a real DEX, so I'm going to see about getting that removed. And then Vegas. I reached out to a bunch of places, venues, getting close. It's between two. But man, I almost settled on one yesterday. And then I'm reading the contract. I'm glad I'm reading these things and asking, because like they just hide stuff. And so like we have a minimum spend for a set window of time. And so in my mind, we can just stay there until the place closes and we have our minimum spend. And it's like, oh no, it's only within a 2-hour window or a 3-hour window. If you want to stay longer, then the minimum spend goes higher. And it's like, oh my God. So I gotta figure this out still. Hopefully I can today or tomorrow, but I'll definitely, obviously it has to be figured out next week. But I'll get it, guys. But yeah, we're close to about 50 RSVPs. The guys from Cake Wallet said they're going to come, so that'll be cool. And be nice. Randy's going to try and talk to some other wallets, maybe some other L1s. See if we can get some other like actual partner integrations coming. So that'd be great. And this is my goal going forward for conferences. In my mind, I'd rather start with side events than a booth. One, they're just a lot cheaper. And then two, we've got a side event. Say we got half THORChads and half wallets, layer ones, whatever that we're open, we want to integrate. The THORChads coming to these events, you guys are our best salesmen. And so we have you all in the same room. It's not just me and Chad and Randy trying to pitch these guys. We've got 40 or 50 THORChads, who all love us, right? Celebrating us. And this does work. The firm I used to work for, Sprott, they're publicly traded, SII. They're like a $50 billion company now. And one of their shticks, one of their gimmicks was at all the conferences, we would buy tickets, 100 tickets for 100 clients. And those clients would go to the conference, and then we would have a special, like a breakout session just for those people. Then those people go around all throughout the conference and they're talking about, oh, I got this free ticket and they're great. And now we're going to this, invite only event. And like now we have 100 salesmen walking around this conference telling everyone how great we are. So this works, you guys. And so it's actually, maybe you don't have time now, but to get people THORChain t-shirts, if you're going to come to the event, so maybe next time we'll do this, but to give you guys a THORChain t-shirt so you can go walk around the conference in your THORChain t-shirt. And actually I have to give the idea to Richie. So I can't take credit for that. It was Richie's idea. Thank you, Richie.
But like it's just a big, annoying, disgusting hat.
A 10-gallon cowboy hat.
Just a 10-gallon, ridiculously just stupid looking.
A big
And
foam.
it would be so much more effective than a t-shirt. Like you have to admit, like it would just get much more attention. People like, whatever, but like you would just get like that THORChain hat? Like a 10-gallon fucking, yeah, it would work so much better.
A big foam lightning bolt. Huge foam lightning bolt. You know what I mean? With the QR code. I'll put swap.thorchain.org on it.
So yeah, so hopefully this will be a good test run with this side event, see how it goes. I'll get better at organizing them, planning them. I like to think I can throw a good party, guys. So once I get this ironed out, get better at it, if we can start getting some notoriety where people want to be invited. They ask, I heard about these THORChain side events. I want to go, like, can I get an invite? How do I go? Whatever, right? And that's just from us, liking each other and having fun and telling stories. It's not about like we create our own fun, right? Which you can't pay for that, right? So, we have a good time, we have fun. Then hopefully that'll percolate out into the conference and people wanting to be, whether they want to come to the event, whether they want to use THORChain, whether they want to integrate THORChain, right? It all works, it all plays on each other. So, so yes, I'm actually kind of glad that at first I was thinking there's just going to be 10 of us, 12 of us. We'll just show up at a bar and have a couple of drinks type deal. But I'm glad we're getting this turnout, and I'm glad Randy, and you, Chad, you guys are when you're at the conference on Monday, you want to invite people. So this could be good. This could be a good first run.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Yeah, Randy and I will be definitely trying to yank random people, so to speak, potential partners especially, into this party.
Yeah, cool. And then just one other, I guess, quick update is there's a scam website, swap.throwchain.org. So the R and the O are reversed. So just be vigilant, guys. Keep an eye out. And if you find any other sites like this, please let me know. So what I've done is I've gone to the registrar of that domain and submitted like an abuse report. And so I don't know how easy or hard it's going to be, but they're asking for some info, so I may have to use AI to help me get it. I don't know, but do what I can, do what we can to try and get these sites taken down. And so I don't know what the answer is. Do we, just go and buy all these domains and just hold them on ourselves, all these different spellings? Do we just try and whack-a-mole and just try and get them turned off when they pop up? But I don't know what the right answer is. But in the meantime, guys, if you notice one of these sites, let me know. Then we can try and have it taken down, so we can, it's important, not only is the right thing to do to help people, but that helps protect our brand, right? The last thing we need is people getting screwed over by a mistake. So,
I
and
think there's procedures you can go through to, like, attest that this domain is owned by somebody and they're doing it maliciously and they're trying to steal a brand. And
that's
so you
what
can
I'm
do
trying.
that, like, on Twitter, right? Like, when somebody takes
Yeah,
like my identity on Twitter, like I
yeah,
can go to Twitter and say, hey, this guy's not me, blah 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 blah. I think you can do the same thing. Maybe you just mentioned you're already in that process of that.
that's what I'm trying. And I don't know, like, is some rinky-dink registrar out of Hong Kong, like, who knows?
Yeah, it gets
You know what I
hard.
mean?
Yeah.
If it was
Yeah, yeah.
GoDaddy, I'm sure they'd be, very helpful, right? Um, but so we'll see how it goes. I mean, I just did it today, so I'm not sure if they'll make it difficult or easy or not. Um, but yeah, just a heads up for the community to be aware. Always check your URL. Um, and I was talking to the Unstoppable guys about, is there something, there's something we can do somehow on the site to make it more obvious that you're on the right site. So we're brainstorming some ideas. Um, yeah, but off the top of my head, that's all I got for an update from me.
Yeah, I actually had a thought about this too, because, like, this is just like a general technical interesting thing of, like, there's a concept in, like, domains, and I'm blanking on the name of it off the top of my head, where you can buy characters that are slightly different. They're visually very similar, and even if you stare at the correct one and the incorrect one side by side, you have a really hard time differentiating between which one's the real, which one's the fake one. And I've always wondered, like, why don't we just have, like, um, y- um, you just take the checksum of the domain. Like, the browser just takes the checksum of the domain and then displays an icon, like a randomly generated icon from the hash, right? And that way, when you go to apple.com and the icon is just, it's not apple.com, not the Apple.com, like, Apple logo, but just the browser visual representation of the domain you're going to. That way, it becomes, you differentiate much easier between things that look almost the same but a little bit different. I don't know. It was one idea I had a while ago to solve this problem.
I don't. Sorry, I don't think I understood you, Chad. What did you like? So what actually are you seeing when you go to the wrong domain?
Like, do you ever, like, use, like, you ever sign up for a website and it gives you some random default profile pic, which is usually just like two-tone colors that's, like, in some kind of weird shape or something, like it's like a
Yeah,
generic thing. It means nothing,
yeah,
right? But you can generate those based upon some sort of input, and that input could be the checksum of the address that you're actually visiting. So, like, there would be, like, a little, I don't want to say the logo, that's probably the wrong, but a representation of the domain name, not of the company, Apple, but of the domain name, that when you go to it, it's green and blue for, let's just say, THORChain.com. Just by random, it just happens to be green and blue. It could be purple or yellow. It doesn't really matter what it is. But then when you go to something else, oh, it's not green, it's not purple and yellow anymore. It's now orange and tan or something like this. And it just makes it visually obvious that you're not actually at the place that you think you're at, because the domains look so similar that your eye really can't differentiate between the two
yeah. I
very
got you,
well.
got you.
In
Well, that
some
makes
cases,
sense.
like, You can even use like non-English characters. Like there's like a Russian character that looks like like an English 6, right? But like it's so hard to differentiate between R6 and their whatever character that is, and in that alphabet. And so that'd be one way of just actually solving this problem on the browser level rather than on on a per individual website. I have to go hunting one by one with all these fuckwits, buying my fake domains and
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, that was just an idea I had a while ago to solve this problem.
Love it. Do you have any other updates, Kenton?
No, I think that's it. Unless you guys have a question for me about something, maybe I forgot something.
Just keep going, man. You mentioned the party, brother. We're good.
Yeah. Still got actually I mentioned it up front too. Maybe I should get the link for it so we can put it in. I'll put it in the chat. Where is it? So people, you guys can still RSVP.
Please do, guys. It's coming up though. I'm getting really excited. Okay, well, while Kenton does that, Chad, I guess we'll kick it to you. Man, it's very excited community. Last 2 weeks, I'd say we've been talking about Monero. I think that's still going to be the topic of conversation. So maybe we'll just jump right into that. How are things going on the Monero side, the integration wise?
Yeah, things are going very well, moving along quite smoothly, I'd say. Really thankful that JP is also helping a little bit from here and there, which is good to have another pair of eyes on it. And JP is a very smart person. He's been in crypto for a super long period of time, much longer than I've been in crypto, and he knows this space quite well and these technologies quite well. So it's good to have another pair of eyes on, which is amazing. I think that the PR as it stands now is about ready to be merged, which basically just means it's ready for the next phase of that development process, which would be, in our case, would be running it on chainnet. And chainnet is basically just like a staging environment just to start build an actual network with all the different chains, like the same thing as mainnet with just less nodes, basically, with real funds, real money, like all that kind of stuff, and start testing it there. Catch any bugs, issues we might find that and through that stage, obviously patch those. And then, once you go through that round, you test it again, make sure it tests good second time, whatever. And then you go ahead and, launch as part of 3.18.
Okay, so 3.18 is when it's coming. So that was the question I was going to get to. 3.17 is that getting close to launch? Do we have a date on that? Maybe I should know this.
That's a good question. We've already cut it. It's on StageNet. It's being tested by the Maya team. They have a run through, like a run book. As soon as they validate StageNet and say that it's all good, then we can go to our partners, our sex partners. That sounded very weird, but that sounded wrong. Our CEX partners, and let them know that this is the final cut. This build, whatever the build number is, and then we have to wait, I think, a week or 2 weeks. I forget which one it is off the top of my head, and then it comes out.
Okay.
And then nodes adopt.
Okay, perfect. So it's getting somewhat close. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
And so Monero, we're pushing that to 3.18. Okay, so all right. One question I have, I'm trying to figure out how to answer this question. We had specific dates, specific timelines, with, cuts and releases and things like that. Is there a chance that 3.18 could be expedited if we had something like Monero that's ready to go? Or is it more like very standard how we do these things?
No, you could cut it earlier if you want. I mean, there's nothing actually stopping us from cutting earlies right now, if you really wanted to, other than we're already in the process of validating 3.17. So technically speaking, once 3.17 is out, you could theoretically start the cutting process at that moment in time and then start like through that. The negative about that is that you're spending a lot more resources and time to do that, because if you're cutting twice the amount of cuts per year, right, releases per year, then you're also basically doubling the amount of time that it takes to validate those things, because each one has to be tested and validating. So there's a push and a pull to all
Sure.
this, I would love to have a conversation with our sex partners again sounds weird, about either reducing or even removing that limitation that they're placing on us. I find it very frustrating as an engineer that I have to sit with my thumb up my ass for a couple of weeks, which I really dislike for some reason. Yeah, we could make it faster. It just takes more resources to do so effectively.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And the reason I ask is because everyone's so excited. You know the question. When
Yeah,
Monero,
yeah,
when
yeah.
this, and it sounds like you guys have been. I've been watching the GitLab. You guys have just been working so hard on it. You've been working hard on many things, but that is one thing. You guys have taken this and you are running with it. So,
Yeah.
so
I'm
from the
still
community, I just want to say, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm still I'm still in disbelief. Like
Yeah.
I honestly am. I'm like I'm like, this is really happening. Like it's something we've all
Finally.
been I've been personally excited about for a long time. So honestly, I'm not lying, guys. It was one of the things that sold me on THORChain was the promise of Monero. Oh, I
Yep.
wanted to bring this up before too. Do you guys remember so that summer, I think it was summer 22 when the tornado dev was kidnapped and thrown in a cage? And there's a big debate internally within the THORChain community. Do we want to go down the Monero route? And everyone was scared. And there's talk about forking the chain. And I created a YouTube video back then. I kind of want to play it for you guys now, but it was if you guys you can tell me no if you don't think of shit. I took a scene from Gladiator, and when they're in the Colosseum and uh
He's
what's
fighting
got
the lions.
pardon?
He's fighting the lions.
It's yeah, the lines, everyone's coming out, but what does Russell Crowe's character says? Maximus, he goes, if we stay
Uh,
together, we'll survive.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he,
yeah.
he and he huddles them all together and they fight off the lions and the chariots and everything, and they survive. And that was so this is kind of was like my rallying. This is before I was kind of anybody in the third chain community, but it was kind of my way of trying to communicate to everyone. We got to stick together. We can't fork the chain. We can't be separate. We got to stick together. We have strength in numbers. And I was going to this. Oh yeah. So anyway, so this was for me. It was a huge. This is big. I think getting Monero on THORChain, I think, is super cool. It's so like upside of the potential for volume and everything aside, just just doing it, just the fact that it's happening, and the first DEX of Monero without KYC is like it's just so huge. It's so awesome, so
Yeah, yeah.
exciting, and so it's kind of like when you're like looking forward to your birthday party as a kid or some Christmas, you can't believe it's finally here, and it's here.
Yeah,
Christmas
yeah.
Day is coming soon. This is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
Christmas Day.
yeah,
For the cyberpunks.
yeah,
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's finally coming. Hopefully we'll get Parse 318. Assuming there's no bugs and it has to be pushed to 319, but or 318.1 or something like this. But yeah, hopefully get part of 318, which is being cut in 1 month from now. So we have 1 month to get this thing merged, get it validated on a chain net, make sure it's tested, it works as expected. Doesn't mean you can't find bugs in production, of course. We do our best to find as many as we can, as early as we can. And then, if we have bugs, we can just, throw up 318.1, which is those are easy and fast to cut. Those aren't, multi-week things. But yeah, it's coming. And we're also working on Tau/Polkadot as well. That's like being produced and hopefully part of 318 as well. Hopefully that'll also get merged with 318. It's one of my goals for this release at least.
So are you saying Polkadot would come as well, like a third chain?
Yes, because the Polkadot chain and Tau are basically the same with a couple minor differences. And so the implementation that there was a community member who built a Tau chain client, which is fine, it's great, but it was specifically for Tau. And there were a lot of things in there that was like hard coded for Tau, blah, 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 that wasn't really compatible. And we like to implement chain clients in a more like generic way that is reusable for similar chains. Like we have an EVM implementation that we use for AVAX and Ethereum and, other ones as well. And we like to have that kind of core functionality as like a reusable piece that we can utilize in different chains. So Polkadot and Tau are both substrate chains, and there's a bunch more out there, and we can just add more substrate chains, like fairly arbitrarily, depending upon the chain, of course. But for the most part, we can add them both.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I know there's
Yeah.
going to be somebody listening who's going to be crapping all over Polkadot, but like, guys, we're an exchange, right? We're
We're an exchange. I don't
agnostic.
really care if I like Polkadot or not. It has no relevance to the conversation. My personal feelings about if the token's cool or not. The fact of the matter is, it's a big token. It's like, what is it, like 30th or 50th, whatever the number is, like in the, I don't know if Danny still has the CoinGecko on his browser, but like, it's still a very economically powerful token. Even if you don't like it, that's the reality of it, right? So it's still valuable to get added to THORChain, right? And I'm still a big fan of that.
Yeah, on CoinGecko, it's 43 market
43,
cap.
yeah. Okay, yeah, 43. That's
So,
great. That's really good. I don't know, nothing to scoff at.
exactly. It's a top 100. Yeah.
I actually started working on last night. I was up late coding some things, and I started working on the opt-in chain security feature and getting that ready for mainnet so that we can roll out Polkadots and other chains much more smoothly, procedurally speaking, at least.
So I was thinking about that. So this is where, the opt-in chain feature, this is when a node can decide what chains it wants to observe or not, right? So that it can have, like, for example, for Solana, it's really expensive to run a full daemon yourself. And if a nodes don't want to run full daemons of all these different blockchains, it's just too expensive on their end, they can pick and choose. On that thinking, I think that's great. That makes sense. We can let the free market sort things out. But coming back to Monero, like, in my mind, it's better if we all have to run Monero. Like, because if we start picking and choosing who runs it, like, I wonder how I say this. So, for example, me, I have a fund, right? I run nodes. I'm docs as docs can be in THORChain, right? And I at least have some plausible deniability, right? I'm like, well, I'm just running a node on THORChain. Like, I can't control what things this node does, right? It's either all or none. But if I do have the ability to turn Monero on or off, I could be, in theory, I could be pressured to turn it off. Or, so like,
I'm not sure I would agree, just because when you produce a signature to move funds, it doesn't require every node to do that. It usually requires 2 of 3, right? 2/3. And who are the signers of that transaction? Who are the signers? Is it me? Is it Kenton? Is it Denny? Which one of us? Unless you know it was me, you certainly can't hold me accountable for that, right? And so, like, even if you are a member of that Monero, like, you're only signing 2 out of the 3 transactions, not all of them. And therefore, there's inherently with that comes plausible deniability, I think.
okay, so then what about people that they don't agree with you? They're like, well, they just don't want to touch Monero because they're scared or worried or whatever.
That's fine.
Well, are we
don't touch it.
attracting the wrong type of people and node operators to THORChain? Like, we want to scale with people who are pro privacy, pro freedom, pro and they're anti-censorship.
I don't think you're going to be running a node if you don't have that mentality, to be honest with you, especially at this point, considering our history of, with Bybit and whatever else. Like, I don't think people are coming in here with, like, Pluto's mentality, if you remember Pluto. I just don't think that's, maybe some of them are, like, who knows, right? But in the end, it's a free market, and the free market will determine how many nodes you're going to be running Monero. And the less nodes that run it, the more profitable it is for the remaining nodes that are running it, right? Because they're going to get all the fees from that. So if there's a tax in a matter of speaking, on Monero because there's additional risk of running a privacy chain or whatever it is, then that's going to be just kind of baked into the capital markets result, where there's going to be less people running it than, you know, a Bitcoin, for example, but it's going to be, you know, more profitable to you know, naturally to account for that risk in some sense or form, right? From a free market perspective.
Can I ask a quick question of the opt-in chain client? So, wave a magic wand, opt-in chain clients goes live. How does that work from a node operator's perspective? Can they then turn off certain claim chains with no risk of being slashed, or is it just initially opt-in every chain thereafter? Like, so Polkadot, they don't have to run or whatever.
Yeah. So if you haven't opted into any chains, you are by default all chains, which is the current behavior now. Like nobody's opted into any chain right now. Everybody's running all the chains. So it's the same behavior, right? If you want to say, I don't want to run, you know, Monero or Bitcoin or whatever it might be arbitrarily, I only want to run these 5 chains, then you can tell the network, broadcast a transaction, say, I want to run these 5. These are the 5 chains I want to run. These funds here. And then what happens is on the next churn, then that's when you become, you know, accountable for observations and signing and all those things with that particular chain. You can't change between churns. You can only change, you can notify between churns. It can like, it turns tomorrow, I'm going to let you know, no, I don't want to run Bitcoin anymore or whatever. That's fine. But then you don't, it doesn't actually shift until the churn happens. Because when the churn happens, that's when we're creating all the vaults. And we want to know who is owning what vaults, right? Who is signing for which, who's going to be partners with who to secure which asset of what chain of whatever. And so so you broadcast between churns what your intent is, and then that gets realized per churn.
I have a question now. Let's say hypothetically, I don't know how to explain this. Let's say there's a node, 2 nodes that exist, but they literally do not have assets that touch. Well, of course, there's Rune that's touching everything. I get that. But let's say there's Monero and Ethereum node, what random example, and then let's say there's an XMR Zcash node, random example. I don't know. I'm
How
trying to
does
ask
it
this question.
put them all together?
Yeah, like how do, so like they can't communicate, right? So how does that work on the
No, they
network
don't.
level?
I mean, well, first of all, the Rune is not an issue because Rune is not secured via Bifrost, right? So that's not even a part of this conversation.
Okay.
Rune is internal to the network. It's not external. It's an exonerous asset, so it doesn't really matter in the context of the conversation. But how the logic more or less works is that we get the full list of Bitcoin people, for example, right? Who wants to do Bitcoin? And then we create a vault divided by the number of Asgard side, which right now is 20. So if there's 100 people doing Bitcoin, we create 5 for that particular instance. And then for Ethereum, we create whatever we create over there. If there happens to be a situation where the same identical group of people want to support one or two or more of the same chains, which I think is likely to happen because I think everybody's going to support Bitcoin. I think everybody's going to support Ethereum. I don't think there's going to be like, maybe there will be, but you never know. But like probably everybody's going to support like those basic ones. Then it'll like combine those together into a single Asgard vault for those 2 assets for Bitcoin and Ethereum in that situation. But something like Monero, or maybe a Solana, maybe, or whatever it might be, they have a very unique signing set, like a unique set of people. These 9 people, these 12 people, these whatever the 38 people, whatever the thing is. That's very unique to that one specific chain that they have these 38 people, whatever the hell the thing is. Then you would have a separate vault just for this Asgard vault, just for this chain, just for this asset. But you would like only have um you would only have, you know, generally 1 Asgard per chain divided by or multiplied by number of Asgard size.
With with opt-in chain clients, if they're, let's say that we don't add any more changes, hypothetically, let's say, and then we add opt-in chain right now and nodes delist certain assets for whatever reason, right? Does that reduce the computational burden of the network because there's less, what do you call it, gossip attestations between all the nodes? Does that make the network more efficient if people can opt out, like instead of everyone opting in? If that makes sense to my
Largely,
question.
no. I would say from a large perspective, it's really the same. The one caveat I would say is that when you want to reach consensus on Monero, instead of requiring 68 nodes or 67 nodes, you need 15 or whatever the number is. And so there's less talk to do that. But that happens, to be fair, that happens off chain. That happens within the Bifrost, what's called what do we call it? Something attestation. I can't remember the Bifrost attestation or something like this. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my mind. But that communication happens off chain, but still within the peer-to-peer network. But just like I just talk to people that I want to talk to about validating this Monero transaction, whatever that is. And then we all just share signatures with each other's. And then one dude basically broadcasts a transaction to THORnode saying, we all saw the same thing. There's 75 of us, or there's 12 of us. We all agree that this is the result. We all have signatures to support and prove that. So we actually did that change like a year ago, where the consensus is not happening on chain. Consensus is actually happening off chain to make it more efficient. And we just broadcast the consensus once it's reached.
Cool. Kenton, I want to kick it to you. I've been talking for a little bit. If you something want to ask, right?
I'll just kind of add to the conversation. So I think, like, kind of go back to my concern about nodes not running Monero. I guess this would be one of the nice things, positives about having the third-party bond providers is, if they have a node operator who won't do Monero, but they do, they just go find a new node operator. And,
yeah, that's true.
So probably arguably be the bond providers who drive this more than, say, the node operators.
Yes.
And if some node operators just aren't comfortable with it, that doesn't mean we lose that node. We just lose that operator. And the BPs on that node can go find a new operator who is comfortable with it and wants to do it. So it forces the node operators to compete with each other on that front.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of like dynamic, because I had to be honest, I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it. But like this idea, like it's kind of interesting. And me as a bond provider, I don't have any risk of being a part of a node that runs Monero. Like me as a bond provider, I have no control over this. I'm just giving my rune and blah blah blah. Like I probably cannot be held liable by any stretch of my imagination, I would imagine. But I do want whatever node I'm bonding into to make the highest yield possible, right? I don't want low yield nodes. I want high yield nodes, and high yield nodes run more chain clients, right? And so the more chain clients you run, more chains you support as a node operator, you're probably going to attract more bond providers.
Yeah, because the cost for the node to run a chain client isn't reflected in that node's yield. That's an outside meat space cost that the operator is fronting on their own. The yield to the nodes doesn't change based on the person's hardware that they're running. So so every pool, every chain you're not participating in, you're just getting that automatically less yield. There's no okay.
In order to be competitive as like a operator, like if I'm an operator and I don't want to run Monero, right, for whatever reasons, I just choose not to, I have to be attractive in other ways to the bond providers to get them to bond provide. I mean, so instead of charging 20 bips or whatever the number might be in fees for my operator fees, I can come down to 15 maybe, right, and try to attract bond providers that way instead of doing it through some other mechanism. So there's going to be some levers that people are going to push and pull, and then the free market will, and assuming the free market is an efficient one, meaning that all information is readily available almost in live time, then the free market should find some sort of solution for all this and come to some place. And and obviously the hope is that the result is we're going to have lots of nodes running lots of chain clients. Like from a protocol perspective, we want that, and hopefully the alignments go in that direction. And if it's not, then we'll rethink things and make some tweaks and changes to it.
I think it will. I think,
Yeah.
well, because the APY is a big thing, and right now it's kind of the APY is kind of ubiquitous because everyone runs the same change, and it's largely determined, by slash points and things like this. But if we're picking and choosing chain clients, then I think the APYs are going to vary wildly. I mean, if you have hundreds of millions of dollars going through XMR, who knows, just random number, but the APY for nodes that support XMR is going to be dramatically different than those who can't, and so this is going to cause a pull to BPs to go, or maybe some BPs based on geography or personal reasons, they don't want to go to a node that has supports XMR, and so they feel whatever. Who knows? Like, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. There's a lot of things to consider.
I'm inclined to believe that, let's just say the yield sucks on XMR, or let's say it's negligible. I think we're at in the stage in the game, there's enough BPs out there who just out of principle want to support Monero.
I'm one of
Yeah.
them. Yes.
Yeah, like, and
Yeah.
I've already had the question from some of my BPs, and I'm like, yeah, don't worry, we're doing it. This is like,
But you know what? Like the yield on the XMR chain, in my opinion, will not be low. It'll actually be kind of absurdly high. There's a use case to going to XMR that's not just like, I want to invest in the XMR token. There's a demand center on that token than there is that isn't on Bitcoin. There isn't on other assets. And so you can see a scenario where somebody with big pockets, like we saw $100 million trade, in February, for example, right, out of a few trades, but like collectively the person had $100 million. And you can see that person putting all that liquidity from Bitcoin into Monero, and then from Monero back into Bitcoin, or slowly over time to something else or whatever it might be. And so like that would get a lot of trade volume just because there's an additional large demand center for large volume traffic to pass through that pool and generate an unusually high yield relative to other pools or chains. Hence, the free market comes into play and says, hey, there's a lot of yield on this pool. It's not very expensive to run an XMR host, like a full node, and yet there's really high yield on that. Again, free market coming in, evaluating the conditions and market conditions of something, and then just deciding, I'm going to run a Monero. Damn it, I'm okay with the risk at hand. I like the yield. I'm doing it.
Exactly. Go ahead, Kenton.
I was talking to Ibeck about it today, and he's saying like Monero users are price insensitive. That they're not too fickle on the fees and whatnot. They're willing to pay higher fees, and so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And I was talking to him also about like wallets, like, so the Monero wallets, because like I want to make sure we obviously can support it on STO. And he's saying, well, there's really there's three main wallets. Cake is like the top main Monero wallet. And then he says Unstoppable. He says they're like the second biggest. And then there's the desktop, Monero GUI desktop wallet. Those are the main ones. And so Cake and Unstoppable are phone apps, and then you got the desktop wallet. So they need memoless. And like, I guess there's no browser wallets for Monero really, or at least they're not popular. So I just want to make sure, confirm, Chad, that we'll be able to swap Monero and memoless transactions. That'll be.
Yep. I don't see why not.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't see any issue with it.
Awesome.
Should work just the same, really.
Good. Yeah. And then also too, because Monero people are probably a bit more conscious about privacy, so they'll want to use memoless just to be more privacy preserving, right? So yeah.
This is a conversation I just had with Randy, and I was saying, this is like Chad nailed it. 100% is exactly my opinion of XMR. It's not just another chain; it's a use case. And so like Bitcoin conference, there's a lot of Bitcoiners, and yeah, some are maxis, but a lot of Bitcoiners, they want to have privacy, and they're not going to go to a centralized exchange. How do you do that? THORChain will give them the ability to swap their Bitcoin into XMR, and they can choose to swap back when they want. I mean, I really think this is. And that's one thing I really want to tell people at the Bitcoin conference is, hey, like, you want to achieve privacy, you want to protect yourself, KYC, kill your customer, blah blah blah. Like, that is the one thing I think that's it right there. That is something that's never existed before. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
Yeah. Even the most hardest core maxis, you can still get them to acknowledge Monero. They may
Yeah,
not
yeah,
still
yeah.
want to buy
The
it or whatever.
hardcore Bitcoiners. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they'll still be like, well, okay, Monero is probably okay, so um yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah, yeah.
real Bitcoiners should get it. Um so I'm curious, Chad. So one of the things I read about for the Monero integration is that when you have 10 confirmations, has to go for 10 blocks on Monero. Is this for like every trade? And I looked it up, and 10 blocks on Monero is 20 minutes. So does this mean every swap of Monero on THORChain is going to be minimum 20 minutes long for it to settle?
Um, no, I mean, unless I'm missing something, which is totally possible because I am not a Monero expert by any means. My understanding is that 20-minute thing is about how fast you can spend a UTXO once it's created. That makes sense?
Okay.
So you can transfer it now, but then when I transfer that Monero to you, you can't spend that Monero for like effectively 20 minutes or whatever the number is.
You can't
So
move it
the
again, essentially.
Yes. The reason why that's like that is that you don't want people, if I send you money, five Monero, and then you send me 5 Monero right back, whatever, it's pretty obvious just what happened there, right? In some sense, like it's pretty clear. And that means that the rig signature that has like, 10 transactions, and in that rig signature, 9 are false and 1 is true. You reveal which one is the true one, and then you know which ones are the false ones, and that just gives you more information about what just happened on chain. So by transferring like money and then waiting, it becomes harder to like decrypt or what just transacted there, right? It's a little bit like, say we have the Monero pool hypothetically, and there's no volume in it, but one day there's a guy that has like $1 million that he just stole, and he's throwing it from Ethereum into Monero, and it's in some Monero address, whatever. But then because he's the only volume in the entire pool, when he sends that Monero out to Bitcoin, it's kind of obvious that it's him. Do you know what I mean? Because he's the only one trading on it. So it's kind of obvious that like, where it's, what's going on here to some extent. And so like the more valuable this kind of secrecy or privacy rather is relative to the amount of volume that's kind of moving around, then it becomes a lot harder to kind of pick out, what is real, what is fake, where the money actually went to, because there's so much like chaos happening all the time. And that's the point of the ring signature in some ways. It's just to create a lot of chaos. So it's really harder to understand which of these 10 transactions are the real ones and which ones the fake ones. And by waiting for 10 minutes, you kind of enforce there to be more chaos in the system in a positive way to give you a better level of privacy. Right. I think that's changing though with FCMP later this year, but I'm not an expert on it.
So then, okay, so I can sell $100 of Bitcoin into the THORChain pool. I can get $100 of Monero. It can come out right away. But only assuming because it's been in the pool for however many days or hours or whatever. If how I should say this. Let's say, okay, going back to your let's say the pool is empty. I put in $1 million of Monero into the pool. Um, THORChain isn't going to offer those tokens to be sold until the 10 blocks are up, till that 20 minutes is up.
Yeah, so THORChain won't be able to send those new UTXOs that you just transferred to us, sort of, or you created new UTXOs more accurately. We won't be able to spend those until that 20 minutes is up, but we can spend the things that are before it. And that's how we manage UTXOs today. We always spend the oldest UTXO. And the reason why we do that is because the oldest UTXO has the least likelihood of being reorged out. The newest UTXOs that just got in the current block has the highest risk of being reorged out, right? And so we just, for a measure of safety and security and just, reasonable, like common sense here, we start with the oldest UTXOs first and we work our way back to the front in a sense. So most of the time, this won't even be an issue because we're spending the old UTXOs before we spend the new ones, The problem where we might have an issue is UTXO consolidation. which is a normal thing we do in the Bitcoin and other UTXO chains, Bitcoin, Doge, Litecoin, whatever, where when we have too many UTXOs, I think the number is like, I want to say 12 or something like this, we just spend it back to ourselves. We use all these UTXOs, we converted them together to create a new UTXO that's condensed and smaller. And the reason why that's important is you don't want to have 1,000 UTXOs, because when you sign a transaction, you don't sign a single transaction. What you're actually signing in UTXO world is each UTXO one by one. And if you have to sign 1,000 UTXOs because you haven't consolidated to do a single transaction out to send somebody their Bitcoin, well, that's a problem, because the TSS signing is like, I think it's like 12, 15 seconds, something like this. And that just takes a lot of time, right, for us to do that. And so we have to consolidate those UTXOs proactively and spend those time to sign those UTXOs from a TSS perspective. Now, when somebody is not demanding the UTXOs, when just like we're just kind of managing our own stuff, we have the time in this moment to do that, to spend that time. We don't want to do that at the tail end of it. So the reason why this is a problem for Monero is that if we do a UTXO consolidation, we've just locked basically all the funds theoretically for the next 20 minutes. Now, is that a big problem? No, because what would happen is we wouldn't be able to, we'd attempt to sign, we'd sign it, and we'd broadcast it. We get some sort of broadcast failure from the Monero full node. It didn't happen. We retry again. It gets rescheduled to another vault. Well, in this case, there's only one vault, so it can't get rescheduled anywhere else. It's just keeps retrying until the 20 minutes is up, and then we just go ahead and send it out. So it's not like a big deal. The network can handle, and that it's fault tolerant enough to be able to handle that scenario, and as smoothly as technically feasible with the limitations that Monero places on the protocol. But yes.
So what you just described was batched outbounds, batch transactions. That process.
No,
of
because
mining UTXOs?
so in UTXO land, we talk about V-ins and V-outs. V-ins is the UTXOs that you're spending, and V-outs is where the money is going to. Batch is multiple outs. Right, having multiple places where technically we always have multiple outs. Technically, we have like 3 on every transaction, right? Because when you have a UTXO that's worth $10,000, and you have a transaction you're trying to send for $1,000, you have to send 2 outs, $1,000 to you and 9,000 back to ourselves to create a new TXO that's worth $9,000 back to ourselves over here. And technically, there's another out that is the outbound memo, which is going to be removed in the near future. The opportunity, they call it ETXO land.
Gotcha.
I don't know. This is I got much more technical than I typically get on this pod. Hopefully, I haven't like lost or bored the audience too much.
No. People love this stuff. No, this is great. I was thinking. So, I have a question about. So, for those who don't know, there's a very significant change with Monero integration, where instead of like Asgard Vault, which has 20 signers at the most, we're gonna have one vault. Right, we're gonna have one vault, so that we can check the solvency easily. We know if like you just say you had nodes steal the XMR in one vault, you wouldn't know until it came time to churn, right? So we're fixing this attack vector. I'm curious, Chad, how do you foresee churns going with this new Frost TSS implementation? Are you feeling pretty confident about that? Like, you think we'll be able to churn
That's
smoothly?
a good question. The answer is we don't know. I have every reason to believe that it'll be just fine. We're not the first Frost implementation that has 100 nodes. I'm sure there's, like, I think off the top of my head, I think Chainflip uses Frost on their backend, but which, by the way, is not the same Frost as what we're talking about. Ours is a slightly modified, customized one for specifically Monero. But nonetheless, Frost is a much more, relative to GG20, is a much more established. It's a much simpler, cleaner, faster. Uses something called Schnorr signatures instead of like a standard kind of ECDSA or EDDSA. And so it should be able to handle it just fine, but it would not be surprising to me if we got to mainnet with Monero and we saw some weirdness or unusual behavior or an inability to churn would be an understandable bug or issue. In which case, we'd have to go to the nodes and say, hey, we're not churning. There's some problems. we could use some Bifrost logs from a few of the nodes so that we can get a sense of what's actually transpiring here and what the problem is. And we might have to release a patch release to quickly release a release to fix whatever that bug is. We've seen TSS or churn issues in the past, even without Monero, like historically. We haven't seen it for a while. For the most part, we've been pretty clean relative to our past. But so we've kind of ironed out all the kinks for the most part. But Monero is obviously different, and we're going to have 100 nodes signing, approximately 100 nodes signing, producing a keygen, and that's obviously a lot of communications, and but it should work in theory because it's simpler, it's cleaner, and faster than what GG20 is doing, even with 20 nodes. Like I'm pretty sure like 100 nodes will generate a keygen much faster than 20 nodes on GG20.
Yeah. And this is, I'm really glad you said this, Chad, because, we want to just be open with everybody. This is, we think it's, this is going to be really interesting to see it go live on THORChain, right? The pool's going to be shallow. I like to remind everyone, don't attempt big swaps on the pool initially, right? I'm going to attempt to swap like immediately because I'm so excited, but it ain't going to be like tens of thousands of dollars. It's maybe like $50 or whatever. So guys,
or at least make sure you put a price limit on that. Like don't put a no price limit swap. Like that would be ill-advised, especially in the middle of the days. Just like protect your downside, which is by default, all UIs pretty much do this to my knowledge. So you don't have to worry about it too much. But we saw recently where somebody did a trade, massive trade with no price limit, and they took like a $20,000 bath because they just, did it.
You mean with no slippage? He didn't enter any slippage protection?
Right. Like usually when you put a trade in, you say like how much of the token you want to receive like on the other side, right? I'm giving you 1 Bitcoin. I want to receive 300 Ether or whatever the hell the number might be, right? And that just tells the network like, don't make the trade if it's not going to give me what I want, right? Which is obviously like a protection mechanism, right? So if you do it and you set the number to 0 instead of 300, the network's just going to trade whatever it can get. It's like a market buy effectively. And if the pool is not very liquid, because Monero would be pretty illiquid because it's going to not have a lot of money in it, we don't know how the arbs are going to do what the arbs are going to do, right? Because the arbs have to arb with centralized exchanges. So which centralized exchange can our arbs even use? Can they use one if they're in America or if they're in Europe? Are there any ones that actually support their nationality, that whatever the hell they are? So like, to Denny's point, like we don't really know what's going to happen here in some extent. This is a new ground, not just for us, but for the entire industry. We're the first ones to do this. And so there's going to be growing pains. There's probably going to be bugs or issues. There's probably going to be things. I'm just letting you all know. And if it goes smoothly, then great. And then like, thank be to God or whatever the hell it is. But like, I would not be shocked or surprised if we ran into a whole myriad of problems. I remember when we launched single chain chaosnet or even multi-chain chaosnet, there were so many problems in those first like 2-3 months. We were constantly bug fixing gas issues and signing issues and all consensus problems and this. And it was just like, because you can't test everything in testnet. You can test as much as you can, but you can't test everything. That's why Artemis 1 and Artemis 2 going to the moon, it's not just done in a single shot. It does Artemis 1 goes around the moon without any humans involved, and they're testing the heat shield of the Orion capsule, and they're like, because you can test it, you can spend years testing this shit as NASA does when they launch do these kind of systems. And it's still broken. Remember when the Hubble Space Telescope was broken when it first launched? They had to get a guy to fly out there and put was effectively a shiny quarter on the center of the mirror. After spending 12 years and I don't know hundreds of millions of dollars, it was fundamentally broken and it was like out of focus. Do you know what I mean? Like you never really know, and we do the best we can as engineers to try to think of everything and test as much as we can think of. And AI is making that even better because AI can think of more shit than I can oftentimes. But like you don't know until you get there, which is why you don't put people in Artemis 1, you put them in Artemis 2, right? But we don't have an Artemis 2. We have one network. So we have to do the best we can with the situation we are. And sometimes we even use like Maya network as a help in this way because they're a smaller protocol with smaller risks, and we can try things over there with less risk in a sense. So we do the best we can. We test everything we can think of, but you never know with this stuff. And you can always have bugs. You can always have issues. every piece of software is unsafe, as Mythos is proving to the world in this moment. Like we're doing everything we can, but like there's going to be problems. I'd be shocked if there wasn't.
Yeah.
But we're gonna fix them. We're gonna
Yeah.
find them. We're gonna fix them. We're gonna we'll get it. It'll take some time, but we'll get it to be super smooth, I'm sure.
Yeah. The problems are good too. It means like um, it's better to how do you summarize it? It's better to fail quickly than to take a long time to fail. Like we could spend months and years perfecting everything, right, to launch without any bugs, and
Mhm.
it just it's you'd get to your end state so much quicker just going live now, fixing things as you go, because you just get that feedback immediately, and yeah, to have like a perfect turn something on, it all works perfectly. It's so. I like to think our audience understands that. They're pretty
Yeah, they do. They
like,
do.
Hopefully.
maybe if they're normies, they don't get it, but yeah.
It's hard to know this stuff because if you're not an engineer yourself, if you don't have a career in engineering, it's hard to understand the complexities and how hard it is to do what we do as an industry. Like we have 0 days in, iOS software, for example, and there are brilliant people at Apple, brilliant people at Google, brilliant people at NASA. Like these are smart motherfuckers, a lot smarter than I am, to be honest with you. And they make mistakes, right? It's a natural thing to occur in this kind of world. And even Mythos makes mistakes as well. I'm very confident to say that even before it's
Yes.
released. So it's just like the stuff. It's hard to do any of these things perfectly, and nobody ever does, ever does.
That's why I'm really glad you're saying all this, because I just really want to manage expectations and go out of our way to explain this is uncharted territory here. I think people get that, but I just want an army of people to communicate when it goes live. If there's something that happens, I just want people to, this is potentially expected. They're gonna get a fix. Blah 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 blah. So yeah, Chad. Thank you for breaking that down. I cut you off, Kenton. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just I understand this guy's question. I'm going to show it here. I think he's asking about Monero. So how will Monero work with streaming swaps if we've got this 20-minute delay thing? If there's,
Oh,
ARBs might have a hard time arbing. Yeah, do you have any ideas there, Chad?
Um, well, my knee jerk reaction is that like it's a non-issue because ARBs are arbing using secured assets. They're not even touching the Monero blockchain. I mean, they're using it to exit and to enter, but they're not using to arb moment to moment for the most part. Streaming swaps happen internally to the protocol, not externally. So once you've gotten past Monero and you're in the THORChain network, that's when streaming swaps start. And at this point, Monero is the same identical coin as Rune at that point from the protocol perspective. They're both just local tokens on the local network. There's really not much of a difference at all, right? So streaming swaps and these 20-minute blockers and these kind of things are non-problematic at all, especially coming into the protocol. Leaving the protocol and sending out Monero, you could potentially have a problem where we're not able to send you the Monero that we're supposed to be sending you because we've spent all of our UTXOs and they've been consolidated, and they were just consolidated a moment ago, and we can't send any Monero at this point, and we have to wait 20 minutes. That's totally possible. But like I said before, if that does happen, which I'm sure it will just naturally from time to time, it's not a big deal. There'll be a 20-minute delay to the outbound artificially, but there's nothing we can really do about it.
And
Other than
so,
like getting a little bit clever about our UTXO consolidation, maybe we could do some improvements in there, but whatever.
so then I guess the question remains with ARBs, like just keeping the price of Monero on THORChain in line with price on other centralized exchanges. And I mean, if these other centralized exchanges are getting more and more difficult to use, liquidity is drying up, THORChain will set the
Yes,
price.
that's totally possible. That's a very, I don't know what, I mean, can you bring up Monero real quick on CoinGecko, one of you guys, and look at the trade volume is and what the sexes are that markets, the current markets,
You
what those
doing, Denny?
volumes are. I'd be curious. Like, I don't know what the numbers are, and it's possible. Like, if it keeps on getting delisted, and major exchanges like Binance and Coinbase aren't listing it because they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, then maybe, possibly. What's
You
the
can
24-hour
sort by
trading?
24-hour volume, because I don't know why they don't put that in order.
Right here.
Of
So
volume.
52 million, 9 million, 8 million, 7
It's
million.
almost entirely on KuCoin. That's really setting the price at this point. Then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
and 52 million is obviously a lot of trade volume. So I don't think we're going to do that anytime soon. But maybe we will. Like the people who are using KuCoin, they're using it because it's like their best choice in this current
Right.
moment, right? And they're doxing themselves when every time they buy or sell the Monero token.
Right. I
They're
had
not
this
gonna,
conversation. Go ahead. Sorry, Chad.
they're right, but like they're not going to be going away because arbiters that are in whatever country they're in might use KuCoin to be their balancing act in a sense or whatever. But if the day were ever to come, and I'm not saying that it will happen or whatever, but if it were, that we would become the largest, most liquid trading of Monero, which is, I don't want to say it's not. I mean, it's possible. It certainly is possible. Then we would set the price of that asset, which would be crazy. It would be like mind-numbingly
Exactly.
amazing.
I had
That
the
would be
same
like
conversation today.
the manifestation of one of the things we've been talking about in this protocol for a long time. I remember talking about like one day being setting the Bitcoin price. I know that sounds so stupid and ridiculous, and it is. And
Not
please
stupid.
that's not lost on me. But like if you live in a world where using centralized exchanges is more expensive and more time consuming and more complicated and more arduous, I don't think people will trade on THORChain because it's decentralized necessarily, although some people would. I think people are going to trade on THORChain because it's just quicker and it's just more convenient and it's just faster. Like that's just the reason to do it, more than any other reason from an average user's perspective. But maybe we will be one day Monero's, market center effectively. And then everybody's
Right.
going to be arbing against us instead of we arbing against them.
Danny, can you click on DEXs, please, on the on that table?
Yes, sir. Let me go back to it real quick. Dex. Oh, there's no trading pairs.
There we go, boys. We're gonna be the only one. Couple of months. It's all coming together. I love how a plan comes together. Right? It'll just be
Is that-
THORChain there at some point.
Is that a 404 error or what?
Yeah.
What's happening there?
Well, I had the same conversation, Chad, that you just mentioned. I made the same, like maybe perhaps with THORChain adding XMR, true volume, true demand, and true price discovery may happen for that asset in itself. Now, obviously not immediately because the price is going to be, the pool's going to be so shallow when we have bugs. But once XMR gets firmly established on THORChain and we get all the quirks, I would not be surprised at all if that happens.
And by the way, when we get the POL, system income to POL thing that we've been talking a little bit on and off here, if we start getting a lot of volume through Monero, even in shallower pools, the POL is just going to start deploying more capital there, right? And that pool is going to get naturally deeper, right? And that's going to get and more. It's going to generate more fees and get even more deeper, right? And that kind of thing. So like it's KuCoin has 52 million in trade volume in the last 24 hours, but like, how is that going to change after there's actually a DEX option? I don't know. We'll see.
Oh
By
man,
the way,
so
I
Go
did
ahead.
see on your browser, by the way, and at the bottom of the browser, it was a for like related news for Monero. There was a THORChain community podcast or Twitter stream at
Let's
the bottom of the
go.
page. So we're even being
Oh, there is.
advertised on the Monero page right now on CoinGecko. I saw it.
You're right. It's there. Let me bring it back up. Holy smokes. How did I miss that? Oh my gosh. I'm old and blind. Let's go.
Share your screen.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now, buddy. Look, it's right there.
at
Monero
that.
latest news. XMR is coming. Monero THORChain 1 to 2 months. Hopefully, you guys, we're going to try our best.
That news broke on this podcast, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then you took that and ran with it and made it into a thing, and now it's on moneronews.com or where the source of this information is.
Dang it. Gosh, I love it, you guys. And so like Boone made it, a lot of people make this point. Boone said it as well. It's like XMR really should be like our primary focus right now, because this all happens so live. Like this is a new thing. Like to your point, Chad, we figured this out 2.5, 3 weeks ago. That Frost TSS actually works, and then immediately we're just like LFG. I mean, you, JP, the Maya dads, Boone, like you guys have just been slaying it ever since. And I said this last time. I'm going to say it again. The community is just like keep going. Like you guys, everyone's so excited and thrilled watching you guys work. So
this is kind of what I was trying to push at like a month ago or maybe 2 months ago, whatever it was, when we I think it was a month ago, when like this news came out that the 9 Realms was kind of stepping back from the project, and people were a little bit like upset about that or nervous about it. And I was trying to say at the time, but like it's not a good thing. Obviously, wish them well, blah blah blah, all those things. But like we have a team that's going to be bigger than it was before that point, and we're going to keep on shipping. We're going to launch these things, and like, and that's totally true. Obviously, Monero is one of them. Tau is being another one. We got rapid swaps is another one in recent days. And I got another thing I want to throw at the community at some point today. That's like, I think it's blow people's fucking minds off. I'm actually quite excited about it.
Blow our
We're gonna get
minds.
into that a little.
Don't tease us.
Oh.
I'm really fucking excited.
You like
maybe
your
I should
foreplay,
comment-
Chad. You want to like tease us and get us turned on.
My Thor play.
You're edging me right now, Chad. You're edging us a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, make sure you bring your hookers and your tight pants to our party. And,
I will. I will, buddy.
Well, maybe before Chad, you blow our minds. Jenny, did you want to keep going on ripping on Monero? Keep going. Anything else to talk about?
Thank you to Soda. He reminded me. Boone is actually going to be talking to Monero Talk, a very famous podcast on Monero. It will be happening today, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys. So shout out to Boone. Really excited him. I think Boone's listening right now. I'm really looking forward to that conversation. So yeah, guys, news is spreading that THORChain is going to add Monero. So this is very, very exciting.
I was talking to Ibec about it today. So Ibec's he runs Unstoppable. He's the leader of the team there, and like they're big. Their wallet's big into Monero. They're tapped into the Monero community, and he's like after Bitcoin, he's like Monero is like the most passionate, hardcore, engaged community in crypto, and
until we get our room people wearing giant hats and walking around.
That's right. That's right.
Then we'd be like, that community is so intense. Like they're like the diehard community. It's the THORChain community. But I digress.
But which is good because, and I like, anyone that understands privacy on that level, which as far as I'm concerned, they're pretty intellectually honest people. And so they can see THORChain for what it is. We don't even have to like explain the past or this and that. I feel like they should, and maybe we do a little bit of explaining, but like they should get there pretty quickly. And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing people. I've had a few wallets reach out to me to integrate THORChain based on the news. Already sent them the API and the docs. They're like, we're going to have this done and ready to go as soon as you guys are live. Mainnet, this is live on our wallet. And it's like, there's no dilly-dallying. There's no like, well, maybe we gotta have a meeting about this and see. Like, no, they see it for what it is, and they're doing it, and they want to support it. And so I think it's awesome. I think I like to think it'll keep spreading, and so it's pretty exciting.
Beautiful.
It's pretty cool.
I think we're gonna move on from Monero because I know Chad, but that's so perfect, Kenton and Chad. Like, if there's a message, Monero, if you're listening right now, THORChain is coming. We are coming. We are marching. We are going to give you guys permissionless, non-KYC access to the asset. You guys have been waiting long enough. The world is ready. The world has never needed Monero more than it does right now. THORChain's got you. We are fucking coming. Let's go. I love it, guys.
We're shipping.
Isn't I want to say, I don't know if it still is or a while ago, like people were kind of measuring cryptos based on like number of transactions or like actual real world use. And I want to say, was it Monero well ahead of Bitcoin even? Was it Monero at the top? Or maybe it was second. It was like Bitcoin, Monero, Ethereum, or like Monero, Bitcoin, Ethereum, something like that. It's like definitely top three for like actually used cryptocurrencies. And so this is gonna be cool.
And I got to make sure I say thank you to Luke Parker from Saridex for open sourcing your Frost TSS implementation. Thank you so much. We want to make sure it's said again and again that because he did open source that, we are at this point. So thank you, Luke Parker.
He's been a hardcore Monero person for I don't know how many years now. Right? He's always been a big supporter of that community, which is awesome.
Well, is it? Then should we maybe, to give him credit, is it fair for us to say that we're first? Is he can actually technically beat us to it? Because he's
Sarai just said that they're going to be launching soon. So I don't know. Maybe the announcement on THORChain has kicked in high gear, or maybe this is just a normal thing. Whoever's first is first. As long as we get it done. As long as we get it done. and that's what matters.
Maybe there's some
Go ahead.
reciprocity going on. Maybe he's able to copy some of our code to get him going.
Well, he
I don't
already
know about.
has. He
Yeah,
already has.
yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing that for years. He's been reading through our code and rewriting it in Rust. And I don't know if how much that Sarai code matches our THORNode code. You know, I haven't looked at the Sarai code, to be honest with you. So, but from what I understand from previous conversations with him is that like he's been basically re-implementing our entire code base in Rust for I don't know how many years now.
Cool. Cool.
So open source helps open source. It's a beautiful thing. And that's the way it's going to be. So shout out to Sarai Dex. I would just, you know what, guys? I think 2 options for XMR is much better than just 1. I don't care. This asset is so important for the world. We just got to happen. So I'm so bullish. With that being said, guys, you think it's time to transition away after 1 hour and 15 minutes away from Monero? And Chad, maybe we could talk about your boner-inducing thing you were just mentioning just earlier.
Yeah. So let me tell you the backstory because it gives more context. I had a meeting yesterday with a wallet, and I'm not going to say which one, but we had a conversation. Me and Randy had a conversation with this person, and we asked the question like, how much volume do you guys do, you know, in total, like overall? And their answer was 307 million per month, and that's obviously a good chunk of change right there. Like it's obviously a good amount of volume. And then we asked them like, well, how much of your volume is passing through THORChain? And they said like, oh, maybe like about 1%. And that's like, well, that's obviously not the greatest, you know, outcome for us. So we want a larger chunk of that chunk in a sense. And so so the idea came to me like actually on that call like, while we were just chit chatting, and then it kind of is grown and become more complicated, but also much more interesting over the last like 24 hours or whatever. And I do have a MR open. I forget what the number is. 4752. If anybody wants to look at it more in detail. And there is a ADR in that PR if you want to read the actual ADR, which will, you know, lines out the actual feature and how it works and all the details. But the TLDR is that we want to get more volume, right? We want to get more fees. We want to get more volume. That's our most important KPIs, I would say, right? The problem is that we're not price competitive to get that 307 million that's currently there, right? And we can decrease our fees from 10 bips where it is now to, you know, just call it 5 bips and maybe get more of that volume. But by doing so, we also lose fees because something like swap.thorchain.org is always going to trade us pretty much no matter what the price really is, right? And so we would cut our, which in swap.thorchain.org is like what, like half of our swap fees come in through that, or half the volume comes in through that one. And so by lowering our fees to get more of that volume, we lower the fees we collect from swap.thorchain.org. Right. And that's a problem because now we have this kind of like you give and you take and this, you know, in both directions. And so we did this whole thing earlier in 2026 with Familiar Cow, where we tried 1 bip, we tried 5 bips, we tried 20 bips, we tried 10 bips, we tried 15 bips. We just kind of tried a bunch of different things. And then we kind of found like a happy middle ground between volume and fees and kind of an optimal space, which was we ended up being at 10 bips, which is what we are right now. So the concept that I'm kind of floating to the community as a change I want to make is I want to move to a dynamic fee model. And we've talked about dynamic fee models in the past, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can cut it. You could do it by like surge pricing, which is what Uber does, right? When there's a lot of volume passing through, we double our price, right? And we can get more fees that way. There's another way we can say that, oh, if the size of your trade is really large, we consider that like an OTC like deal sort of. We'll give you a little bit of a discount, right, to attract more volume that way. We've thought about like different ways. That's what we've even talked about on this podcast about like different ways of kind of cutting the pie or whatever the correct actual phrase is. That I didn't just make up. But so the way that I'm thinking about we should do this, I think this is really, really fascinating, is the protocol will watch and track how much volume and fees the protocol generates per THORName per trading pair, right? So BTC ETH or ETH to BTC, both of those are the same thing, or BTC Rune or USDC to USDT or whatever it is, USDC to USDC on different chains. Doesn't matter what it is. We track individually on all those very micro nano kind of, you know, laser targeted scenarios to track how much volume we're getting from these THORNames on each pair and what fees we're getting. And then the protocol will just like change its fee model from 10 bips, let's say, for example, to 11 or to 9, and just kind of step up or step down and then watch what happens. Do we get more volume? Do we get more fees? Right? What happens as a result of that kind of change? Right? And sometimes like that will allow us to be different on different things. So for example, if it's just for stable coins, it's just us versus Chainflip. Well, Chainflip charges 10 bips, so we can charge, close 10 bips on, stables to stables. But layer 0 might do it for 2 bips or 3 bips. But they're not there for this THORName. They're there for that THORName. So we don't need to worry about them on this THORName because they're over there. So we don't need to do 2 bips over there. We need to do 2 bips over there, but over here we can keep it at 10 bips, even though it's the same trading pair, right? Because the market is different in that scenario versus the other scenario because it's different players, right? And so you want to be able to almost study the other players in this particular THORName, right? Whatever that is, and the trading pairs that are happening, and then individually in a very microscopic almost way of like optimizing our fee model to generate the highest amount of revenue and the highest amount of volume. Do you see what I'm saying? You follow with me so far? So this would be enabled on a per THORName basis. Like there'd be some, operational mirror that we just kind of flip it on for one particular THORName, and then we can try with one to start and watch the traffic. But if we do this for something like, SwapKit, for example, we can set our fees to be very competitive with, Near or Chainflip, and not lose the revenue we're getting from swap.thorchain.org. In fact, the protocol might decide that we want to increase fees on swap.thorchain.org, theoretically. If we wanted to do that, we can set a higher and lower bounds, if we want to, but we can potentially increase fees on that particular interface because we don't have any competition there. So we can charge more and make more because that's what the free market would determine in this particular situation. But in this other free market, which is SwapKit, we have a different situation. In this other one, which is called Edge Wallet, for example, we have another situation, right? And the protocol will just naturally, using statistical analysis, you could call it AI if you want to. I wouldn't use that phrase. It's a little bit overutilized, but whatever. It's more accurately call it a statistical analysis to break it down on a narrow view of everything and then make A/B testing to see where's the most effective place to put the fees on every trading pair within every THORName, and then win is object is to win as much as possible, right? And to mathematically find the optimal place for all these different places. So instead of being a flat rate, we're like more like a sheet, like a wave that just kind of has high and low fees depending upon where it makes the most sense to have high fees and where it makes the most sense to have low fees. See what I mean? I think if we do this, we could just totally rug a lot of the other competition in the plays in the industry, and just get a ton more volume and a ton more fees and become highly competitive in every market, not just a flat market that we set 10 bips for the entire industry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's like if you had one tool and you had multiple tasks to accomplish that, you one tool, you can't, so yeah, Kenton, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I like it. It's dynamic, and I'm glad you mentioned the AI part because initially I'm going to be honest, Chad. The first thing I thought was you're going to use Hugin to be an AI governor, a fee governor, right? He's going to sit on top and he's going to like look at things and he's going to decide, okay, we can squeeze them here. We need to let loose a little, you know what I mean? So that's a really interesting idea. I think it makes sense.
I mean, it's not really AI. We're not using LLMs or any kind of artificial intelligence. We're just doing
stats. It's all statistics.
Yeah,
statistical
statistics. Yeah,
traditional statistical analysis. Right?
You're basically going to create the supply-demand curve, right?
Yes,
and
on
just
an
try
individual
and find
market
the
by
intersection
market
in the middle.
case.
What's that sweet spot? And
and we can place like weights on how much do we value volume and how much do we value fees, right? Maybe we can do like we can choose like we value fees 3 times more better than we value volume, so that if we go from 10 bips to 9 bips, maybe we get a little bit more volume, but you don't get any more fees, but we still like that because we want more volume anyway, right?
we're taking volume from someone else, so it could be worth it for us to we're spending that money by losing it by cannibalizing somebody else's volume.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
What
see.
is okay? This I love this idea. Sorry to interrupt you, Kenton. I didn't mean to do that. How long is this something you've already pushed? I can't remember what you said, Chad, or
I have
something
a
needs to be worked
MR.
out.
It's in draft status. I actually wrote it out last night because I was really excited about this. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I should just fucking build it. Fuck it. So I'll even put it up. I'll put the I'll link in the thing, and you can screen share, or I'll screen share it or whatever. But here, we can put the what's the chat thing? Put in the public chat so everybody has access to it. Um, yeah. So I started last night. It's in draft status. I haven't started like reviewing the code yet, and to be honest, I need to spend more time kind of mathematically gaming in the system. Like, how can I game it maliciously to get better outcomes for myself if I wanted to mess with it, and think more deeply about the complexities of how to do this is actually much more complex the more you think about it. Like, if you really wanted to, I'm not saying we're gonna do this. No, this is probably going way overboard. But just to give a context of like how complicated this can get, like you can say that like trading on THORChain, THORChain is predominantly Western voters rather than Eastern voters, like Asian voters versus like American voters, and like the amount of volume we get is different during the daytime versus the nighttime relative to whatever part you are in the world. You could talk about how yesterday was tax day, and well, maybe tax day is a big day selling wise, and so that you can take market information and utilize that to tweak your fee model to be okay. It's tax day next year, so let's just go ahead and increase the fees by 2%, right? If you wanted to, right? This is getting into like hyper price optimization, hyper price discovery, mathematical kind of stuff. I don't think we should go that far. There's diminishing returns to it. Compute is complicated in blockchain world. Space is complicated in blockchain world. So we probably shouldn't go too, ape wild with this. But I think this is at the right level in my mind, at the right balance between specificity and narrow kind of targeting, and too broad and too generic. Because right now we're too broad and too generic. We just have one fee for everything, right? And this only applies to layer ones, by the way. It's not applied to secured assets. So it's only going to apply to like layer one swappers, which is really just like regular swappers. Not going to apply to arbitrage, for example. That's like, I didn't want arbitrage to start using this way of like, as a way of attacking them from an arbitrage perspective, which is why it's just on the L1s and not trade assets or secured assets.
I like it.
I
The-
like it too.
so this reminds me, Chad, I mentioned this in our group chat. What about doing some kind of like referral fee for like these wallets, for example? So instead of them having to add a fee on top of THORChain, we give them a piece of THORChain's fees. So like, let's say right now the minimum swap is 20 basis points.
It's too easy to game.
How do you mean?
Well, I can affiliate myself and just pay
It would have
less.
to be permissioned.
Yeah, it would have to be permissioned.
Yeah, 100% have to be permissioned.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I kept coming to. There's no way to do it without it being permissioned.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. So one, are you against doing something permissioned like that? If not, do you think if that's a valuable idea as well, like to try and
Well, I would say that like
get more wallets?
the only reason that I can think of right now to do something like that is to produce a higher yield for the protocol, right? Like we wouldn't want to do it for any other reason that I can think of. Maybe you can think of something I'm not thinking of, but if it generates more yield, then maybe we'd be interested in it, right? But I would also argue that's what this is effectively doing, is it is cutting the price, which is what you're kind of saying in another way of saying it, in the hopes that it generates more volume or more fees or like whatever. And I think the protocol is basically doing what you're kind of wanting to do, to cut prices where it makes sense to cut prices so that we can generate more volume and more fees. It's doing that just in a completely autonomous and almost non-permission way.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still permission because we have to whitelist THORNames to get access to this functionality. And I kind of wanted to do that way for a handful of reasons. I don't want people to create a THORName that they're just using for themselves and then
exactly.
push it down to 1 BIP and then start doing lots of trading or whatever. Like that would obviously not be good. So we want to do it through a permission system of like we select THORNames, and initially we're just going to select one and test it out on that particular THORName and see how it behaves and validate the code works as we want it to work or whatever. Everything works as expected. And then we can roll it out to, STO and SwapKit and Trust Wallet and Ledger and Edge Wallet and Thor Wallet and whatever, Asgard X, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think
Cool.
this is the way we. It's funny because we were talking on this podcast a couple weeks ago about how we are now in a place, technically speaking, that we're able to just configure whatever outcome we want on THORChain. We can configure low prices, we can configure high prices, we can configure slow swaps or fast swaps. It's all configuration. And now that it's done, now the entire thing is more or less configuration. Now we have this flexibility, come to think of it, of being able to target that configuration rather than protocol wide affects all things. We can be targeted and intelligent about how and where we apply these things to optimize things, right? Maybe we feel that that Trust Wallet is more of a security concern, and we want more of a delayed outbound for Trust Wallet than we do for something else.
Well,
Right? You could do that.
Bringing it back to Monero, maybe we can get away with 50 basis points on that pool, right?
Sure. Right.
Right. Why have it at 20? People will be just as willing to do the exact same volume at 50.
We can set the bounds of the system to be between 1 and 20 or 1 and 50 or 1 and 100. It doesn't really matter. It's just a configuration. But yes, like if we're the only ones doing Monero, we can charge 50 basis points if we want to, right? And if we do, it's probably still gonna have a lot of volume because, as Denny said earlier, they're not very price sensitive for the most part, right? Especially when you consider, illicit funds coming through. They don't really give a shit if they lose 80%, 30% of what they stole. They don't give a crap, right? That's not usable unless they can get it out. So
Well,
we can charge, to your point.
we're not building this for illicit funds though. This is
No,
for
of course not.
legitimate
Of course
use.
not.
This is
I'm just talking about the wide spectrum of the
Yeah.
types of people that can go with this,
Yeah.
can use this protocol, and how it more or less applies the same. Like maybe we can charge 50 basis points, right?
Well, I think like Let's Exchange, do they charge 1%, 100 basis points? I'll see if I can figure it out.
I think Ledger does. I think Ledger does 100 basis points.
Ledger does, yes.
Yeah.
think they
Which
do-
to me is like so expensive. This highway, I'm gonna say.
I think
highway robbery,
they do like 150, 170 actually
That's
sometimes.
so
like
much.
It's a lot.
You're paying a lot for convenience in that scenario, right? Because you can just do a memoless trade, on swap.thorchain.org and pay a lot less, than 170 or whatever the hell the number is.
The one thing with the XMR, let's say we could get away with 50 to 100 basis points and we start printing. I don't know how long we want to do it for because that'll just attract competition. And in my mind, the longer we can go without, how do I say this? Like the best way for us to prevent competition is just keep the prices low. It makes it harder for someone else to even get off the ground, and we just maintain our monopoly. So like that's why like natural monopolies can exist and are okay, if they keep their prices low and quality high. It's just monopolies generally can exist through unnatural means, through like preventing competition, and then that's when they jack their price and reduce quality. But in a free market, to maintain a monopoly, you just got to keep your price low and the quality high. So if we were jacking our prices and we're doing it for like a year or two, someone's going to come in with an alternative, and then we're going to have to lower our prices anyway.
Right.
So if we just kind of stay ahead of it, not get too greedy, just try to prevent anybody else from building something. I'm just I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just rapping, guys. Yeah.
No, I agree.
yeah.
Well, and Soda brings up a good point. I mean, there's still aggregators that use centralized means to swap Monero. We will be technically competing with them. It won't be obviously the same in terms of design, but we'll still compete on price. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. Then it becomes a question of like, how much is the non KYC important to you as a
Right.
trader? Are you willing to pay 50 bips versus 45 bips or 30 bips or whatever the hell it is on KuCoin?
Sir, I think they will. It's like that's kind of what I was touching on earlier. The
Yeah,
Monero community being more sophisticated, like they understand less exchange is not a
right.
DEX. They get it.
But this is what's like. So one of the things I love about this idea is that like we don't know what the Monero community would accept as a fee. Maybe it's
Yeah.
50, maybe it's 10,
Yeah.
maybe it's something bigger.
Yeah.
But the protocol would naturally just test different things. You know what I mean? And then realize that, oh, I can charge more and maybe get less volume, but get more fees overall, right? Or vice versa, in whatever direction it wants to go. To like, oh, if I drop my prices, I actually get more volume and more fees because people are like, are willing to leave KuCoin and start using THORChain because the pricing is closer together or something like this. But the protocol itself, without humans really being involved in the process, will just kind of naturally on its own figure out where to place everything just through market conditions, right? Even if Sarai launches the next day, right? And all of a sudden our fees drop, right? Because Sarai just launched. Okay, maybe we drop fees a little bit, right? But the protocol should naturally just kind of figure that out on its own and drop its fees and realize if I drop my fees, I get more, I get more in volume and in fees, right? Or whatever the thing might be. The complexity comes in like this stuff is actually a lot more complicated than it sounds. Like for example, if Sarai's doing 5 bips and we're doing 10 bips, if we move from 10 bips to 9 bips, we'll probably get the same amount of volume, but we'll collect less in fees because we're charging less in fees. And so from the protocol perspective, it's actually better to be at 10 because, we've got the same amount of volume more or less. But if we jump down to 4 bips, then we get a lot more volume and a lot more fees. And that kind of like a little that little spacer between those 2 points, it gets a little bit difficult because how do we discover that? And, it becomes a kind of a mathematical challenge and we don't only have so much resources. We only have so much data we can go off of and, all that kind of, so there's going to be some kind of brainstorming about the best way to solve that kind of problem. My mentality right now is that the nodes can vote through operational mirrors to override the fee to be, something to jump from 10 to 4, for example, or jump from 10 to 5, and then start discovering at that point rather than trying to make your way down to the 5 from the 10. I don't know. This stuff gets pretty complicated pretty fast, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can, even though it being naturally complex. But I
Did you
think it's
ever? Sorry, Chad.
go ahead.
Did you ever see any results from Nine Realms fee testing last fall? I don't remember actually seeing anything published. I did chat with Familiar Cal a little bit, like on the phone once, and I think it was on the phone, I think it was privately, and he just said that what they were seeing is basically just the higher the better. That
Yes.
the volume is inelastic. It's just doesn't matter what the fees are, their volume is the same.
Yeah. So I think there was some Rake had a dashboard that we were using to collect like volume versus fees. But I think the difference though from between then and now is that the volume was not inelastic. We would always get like we were at one point we were like during this when we were set to 1 basis points, we had like 80% of the volume of the entire cross chain market swapping. Like we had so much more than Near and Chainflip and whoever else. But we also collected a lot less in fees, right? As part of that, right? A tenth or a 20th, whatever the number was. So it wasn't so much that it was inelastic, it's just that like when we raised the price, we caught more fees but less volume. When we lowered the price, we got more volume but less fees. And I think that's partly because of like the example of swap.THORChain.org, where that's a static amount of volume. And if you increase or decrease the fees on that particular interface, because we're the only competitor effectively for that interface, we're either going to get more fees or less fees, right? Just from what we put the number at, right? And so when we did that when we increased the fees here, we lost the fees over on SwapKit. And when we decreased the fees here, we got less fees here, but more fees on SwapKit. And so they kind of like moved against each other in one form or another. Offset. And so we kind of found a happy middle ground between all those points. I don't know if there was an actual report written up at the end of all this or not, but there was dashboards and public information to track it. And I think we just kind of figured that this is a way to maximize our current volume of current feed generation was at 10, it was approximately at 10 bips. That was a good kind of balance that we found. But I'm arguing that like we can be more surgical about it.
Could we use this for like some marketing? So like, for example, Randy says he's talking to a new wallet and they want to get THORChain integrated. We could say, listen, you guys integrate THORChain and we'll give you 0 fees for the first month. You go promote to your users, new THORChain integration, no fees from the wallet, no fees from THORChain, trade for free for the first month. Come check it out.
Mhm.
And then afterwards, we turn on our fees. And because we're doing it just for that specific THORName. And then we can go back to our normal fee schedule. Would we be able to do something like that? Would that be possible?
Yes, that is possible. We wouldn't do 0 fees because that would be, I think, a security risk in some sense because it then becomes free to price manipulate, which I don't think we want to have that. We can do 1 BIP or 3 bips or 5 bips, something in that kind of lower range. I wouldn't want to do 0 though. But yes, that is technically possible. And with this new design, I think that would be, I can make a slight change to it to make that more viable, right? At the same time, I'm not sure how political we want to get about, you know, supporting this new interface called Swapper Town, whatever that's called, and give them, 5 bips for the first 30 days or something like that. We could do that. It's an option.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying THORChain, we have to promote it, but we're trying to give this new wallet something to promote.
Yeah.
And everybody wants something for free, right? Anytime you can kind of offer somebody something, like it's a carrot, right? Just to try to help sweeten the deal, right? As opposed to just um, everybody wants to feel like they're getting a deal. So that's what I'm thinking about. Just easier ways to sell THORChain. And
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. So in order to achieve that goal with the current plan as it currently is, you could do it just by being able to set the deadband on individual THORNames. The deadband is what tells the protocol that you have to see a fee movement of at least 1% to move from, 5 to 6 or 5 to 4. And so we don't constantly like, just scattering about. But you can increase that number to be like 100% or 10,000%, which is obviously we're never going to see that. And so that would lock it in at whatever BIP we started at. Let's just call it 3 bips to start. We set the deadband at 10,000% or something like this. And then it just gets stuck at there for 30 days until we change the deadband to like 1% or something small. And then it starts to do its discovery at that point and moving around. You could do it. It wouldn't be crazy.
We have a question. I don't want to detract, but they did ask a little bit ago. I want to make sure it gets asked real quick. Chad, someone wants to know how's Intense looking? What's the status on that?
Yes, Intense is it's I handed it off to another developer. He asked me to take it over. I said, I got lots of things going on. You can take it. Hopefully it'll get merged as 318. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe in 319.
There you go. There you go. That's the answer right there. Okay, guys, we can go back to the dynamic yield. I want to make sure because they've been waiting a little bit.
Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense to me. I'm curious to see how it's going to work. I'm not how it's worked, but the behavior and the effect. I'm really excited to see if you start something and then maybe you tweak it a little bit, dial it in a little. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of a touch and go experimental thing because we've never done anything like this before. So yeah,
That's why we'll launch it with this one THORName to start with, just so we're not touching the rest of the network, and then
right.
I think with this wallet that I met with yesterday, and having $307 million in a month and giving us 1%, that's a really good testing bed, right? Because we're not really getting much volume from them right now, but there's a lot of volume to be had from them. So this is like a really good kind of testing ground for this particular concept. And even if we just applied it, like theoretically, if we just applied it to this one wallet alone and nobody else, we would still get, hundreds of millions of dollars of trade volume theoretically, which is obviously nothing to scoff
Yeah.
at. And I'm sure there's a bunch more other than the one we just met with yesterday. So we'll start with them because they're a great candidate.
And it's in bigger picture too, right? If we're doing say we're doing 200 million, and let's say we're doing we take all 300 million of volume on that wallet, but we're not making any money. Randy can take that and go to the next wallet and say, listen, wallet XYZ, they do 300 million volume a month. That's all us. All comes through THORChain, right? We can sell that. That's
Yep.
data. That's stuff we can go and use and promote. So it's not a total loss, right? It's a loss leader. And
Yes.
right, it's not a permanent long-term thing, but we can use that. We can still drive some value out of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, even just like the idea that we've gone from, whatever it is, 10 million a day or 20 million, whatever the numbers we're doing today per day in volume, from there to like 20 to 30, right? Like that's, and becoming the number one cross-chain DEX in terms of volume again, which I'm very much interested in getting back
And
there.
now that I'm thinking about it, that's the L1 volume. We do benefit from the ARB volume because the ARB's still got to balance the pool, and we will make money from that.
Yes, that fee coming in from that is untouched, right? And again, and even the fee we're collecting from STO, untouched,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's not, I won't say only, but it's largely additive rather than reductive.
So this just sparked off a few things in my brain. No, that wouldn't work. So, shoot, no, I forgot. What sparked in my brain made me forget my original comment was that what if it wouldn't make sense to reduce the L1 fees to 0 and just rely on ARB fees, because then the ARBs would just start swapping L1s.
Yeah,
And
it would still be free to price manipulate because you put in $100 and you get out $100.
Yeah.
I mean, you need capital to do it, to get to push the Bitcoin price to $100,000 or whatever, but it wouldn't cost you anything, and that's inherently problematic, I would say. I don't think we should ever put the fees at 0. I think one is very cheap price manipulation, but it's still possible, right? So there's pros and cons to it all, but I wouldn't want to go below 1.
I remembered my question. So you're talking about reducing the fees so we attract more volume from other aggregators, DEXs, whatever. Is it really our fees that put us lower down the list, or is it our price quotes from the pool? Like, are we quoting the same price of all these other places as well? Yeah.
No, it's both, really. So there's two parts to this problem. One is what we charge in fees, which right now is 10 bips per trade, and most trades are double swaps, so it's mostly 20 bips. In addition to that, you have the slippage that you might pay in terms of the pool price is slightly off from the market price, right? So you might pay 20 bips in fees, but you might pay another 15 bips just because the price isn't really quite precise, right? So that's like another kind of component to it, which, by the way, if you're going to pay additional 15 bips because the price isn't quite right, that means if you go the opposite direction, you would get 15 bips in the negative. So instead of paying 20 bips on your trade, you're actually going to be paying 5 bips because the slippage is working in your direction in that particular way. So that thing cuts in both directions. And in some ways, you could argue that it levels it out. You could make an argument for this because sometimes you get plus 15 bips, sometimes you get negative 15 bips. And then whenever one's available, the other's also available. And so you could call it a wash if you wanted to. Most people, I don't think, would. That said, the Ruggiero team is working on some ARB bots and some concentrated liquidity on the app layer that is intended to help kind of close that gap, that 15 bit kind of, fluctuation, whatever you want to call it, to tighten that up, make it real narrow so that we don't worry about the slip fees very much because it's always like dead on the money. And then we just have to worry about our actual swap fees.
Well, and what about the concentrated liquidity? You brought this up, I think it was last week, that you're flirting with the idea again. Again, that would improve and tighten the spreads. Right?
It would. So the question becomes, I've put that on hold for now to give Ruggiero space to do what they're doing. And if they achieve the goal, then great, I don't need to worry about it so much. I might still do concentrated liquidity even so if it does offer value, which it probably would.
Yeah, why wouldn't? Yeah.
Because there's complexities to it. It's not just like a free meal, right? There are negatives to doing concentrated liquidity that has to be considered. There's this idea of I think it's called LVR, which is like LP versus risk or something like this. It's a way of calculating how much value ARBs can extract from LPs from their arbing process, right? And bleed funds in one direction towards the ARBs from the LPs. And constant liquidity, increases the possibility of that. In fact, the more narrow you get in your lower and upper tick, if you have a very wide, like lower and upper tick versus a very narrow one, the LVR becomes riskier at a very narrow place than a wider place. So you have to be weary of that, and and be weary of how that can backfire and even lose some of the PUL's value, for example, and that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to require, at least for me, a lot more time and research and experimentation, like locally, and kind of have some ideas, because you can do like a traditional Uniswap v3 style concentrated liquidity thing and do kind of a standard issue design like that. That's fine. Maybe that's the way to do it. You could do something like a hybrid, using swap fees with concentrated kind of fixed pricing, blah, blah, blah. Like you can do that too. And there's like, different ways of thinking about it. I haven't done enough research for me to know if concentrated liquidity is a right fit for us, in my opinion, or if it were, what would that design look like? Would it be standard issue Uniswap v3, which might be it? Would be some sort of hybrid or different design entirely? Maybe. I don't know. I want to spend some time thinking about it and exploring it and see what comes out of it. Or the answer could be like, it's just not worth the energy, and not worth the risk, or not worth this. That could also be the result of it. I just said what I was mostly saying last time was that, like, I'm more open to concentrated liquidity now because we don't have to worry about your passive LPs anymore, because we're just moving to a different mentality on this protocol. And that status changes my mind, right? New information changes my mind, right? And so now I want to investigate and read into it. For right now, I put it on the back burner, focusing on this and opt-in chain security and Monero and Tau and all the things that I'm working on this particular moment. And then I'm just going to allow Ruggieri to do what they're doing and launch what they're launching. And hopefully they do a great job and add a lot of value there. And they tighten that pool, price to the market price real tight like that. Which should be impossible, because like, if you think about it, like what you're really paying for when you pay LPs is you're paying them to insert the market price into the THORChain's protocol, into the pools itself. You're paying them for price information. But Ruji's already done that through the price oracle, where all the validators are looking at, I don't know how many it is, like 10, 18 different exchanges for Bitcoin's price and Ethereum's price and this price and that price and that price. So it's like, it's heavily sourced, and we're getting all that information for more or less free, right? And so why should we continue to pay ARBs in that sense? Because we get the information for free here. So how can we use this information that's already available to us, it's already injected into the protocol in terms of the pricing, to more efficiently do that? And the way that Ruggiero is talking about it is a way that my understanding is that I can provide liquidity into this ARB bot on their smart contract, and I get some yield from that, right? But most of that liquidity is just going to stay inside the protocol as system income, and actually increase system income, and also make the pricing tighter.
But this wouldn't, like, remember when, a few years ago, well, 5 years ago now, I guess what it was, like one of the big selling features of THORChain is it doesn't use oracles. That
Yes.
the ARBs are the ones that set the price, and it's all free market, whatever. And so, but now with the THORChain oracle, and if we're gonna utilize it, it sounds fine, sounds good, but
Yeah.
it won't completely replace. It'll just enhance the price discovery of the pools. Still doesn't replace them, right?
Right. So this is a very interesting idea. So theoretically, I'm not saying we're going to do this or we should do this. We're just kind of having some fun doing some cognitive exploration here. We could take the price oracle for like the Bitcoin pool, for example, and always make sure that the ratio between the Bitcoin and the rune is exactly the price, right? And it doesn't even matter what you trade. It just keeps it dead on the money on every. Then rapid swaps would trade, all the rapid swaps would trade everything in a single block, right? More or less. It's not that simple. You lose out of liquidity. There's a problem with that. This is not a real design that I'm propping to the community, but we're just having some thoughts and experiments. You could do that. Now you could argue that like, oh, well, THORChain doesn't use oracles, it's decentralized. But let's think about that more deeply. How many arbs do we have on the protocol? I don't know. It's hard to know. 5, 6, 10? Probably no more than 10, I'm guessing, right? Not a huge amount of individuals. 10, right? Not a lot. Not a very decentralized number, right? But the information we're getting is through 100 validators who are, by the way, are largely trusted. They're 2/3, it's 2/3 assumed that 2/3 are actually are operating in good faith. If that was not the case, all the funds would be gone anyway. So we can kind of prove that the 2/3 are operating in good faith because the funds are still there, right? And we're getting the information from Binance and KuCoin and whatever the places are, which, by the way, when you're an Arbot, where are you getting your price from? Binance, KuCoin, Kraken, whatever. It's still the same information from the same resource, right? Which is some centralized exchange for the most part. I mean, you could be getting it from Near or Chainflip, and I think we are too. I'm not sure which ones off the top of my head, but like we'd be pulling on us from Dexes as well. But nonetheless, you have to get your market price from somewhere. And if we're getting from the same places the arbs, is like, how is it any more or less decentralized than what it is right now? I would argue.
And so kind of going back to what I said, the Oracle thing was about not relying on a third-party Oracle, like Chainlink or something like that, where we've now built our own internal Oracle. That is
big difference.
Big difference.
Big
so
difference.
like
because
that third party
in Chainlink, they're using several oracles as well. To be fair to Chainlink, but you're trusting that nobody at Chainlink has the ability to inject information, in a malicious way, which I don't know Chainlink's design enough to tell you if this is even practical or not. I'm not throwing any mud at Chainlink. But at least in this instance, we know definitively that all the validators are getting from all the different places. Right. And even if one validator or two or even 10 decide to be malicious and say, oh, the Bitcoin price is $100,000 or $10,000, whatever it is, like it would be very hard to convince 2/3 of the nodes to agree with the Bitcoin price being $10,000, especially why would you do that when you can just steal the Bitcoin to begin with the 2/3 that you have? You wouldn't need to price manipulate. You can just take the Bitcoin, right?
Well, now you're kind of making me convinced we're good. We can use our own Oracle. And then
I think we can. It depends on how we want to use it, right? Like I said, like you can use oracles in like an extreme case of what I was talking before about you could make the pool price be the oracle price at all times. That's a very like on one side of the extreme. On the other side of the extreme, theoretically, you could change the price that we're charging as another kind of dynamic fee concept. But like if we're overpriced some to a little bit too much, instead of correcting the pool price, we correct it with our fee. So instead of charging 10 bips, we're going to charge 5 bips to correct that kind of incorrectness. Or if it's in the other direction, instead of charging 10 bips, we're going to charge 15 bips. Like kind of force it to become to push to get rid of the slip fee that's kind of waving around in different directions. And we're using our swap fee to counteract the inaccuracies of the slip fee. Both of those are fine, not fine, but like they're both are things that you could possibly do. But one is like highly reliant on the system, on the Oracle, and one is like, it's a little bit. Like it doesn't actually change the mechanics, doesn't actually change much at all. It just makes our fee more or less expensive. It's very kind of quite minimal, right? And you can go either way on this kind of spectrum between these 2 points. But in this case, where you have this kind of smart contract Arbot that Ruchi's working on, and they're also working on contra liquidity as well, right? They're doing on their side that affects the base layer. And so they're doing it by their own design, and you can choose to participate in that system. But the base protocol doesn't give a shit. It's just arbing us. We're not any different than we were yesterday. There's just a new Arbot. It's just on chain versus off chain, and it's doing more or less the same thing as every other Arb system in the world is doing. Just the only difference is it's on chain versus off chain, and being on chain gives you a little bit of advantage because you can in the swap order you can kind of insert be the last one or the first one. I forget which one it is off the top of my mind.
So, well, then in theory, maybe Ruji's way of doing it actually edges out the current ARBs, and we kind of naturally move towards our own Oracle and our own.
Yes, that could happen. I don't remember off the top of my mind, and I have to look it up. Of like, does the Ruji app have the ability to mess with the swap order to give themselves priority in terms of swap trade, like execute first before other people, or not?
It shouldn't.
I don't think that it does off
I'd
the
be
top of my mind,
surprised.
but I have to go back and look.
I'd be shocked if that's the case. I can't
Yeah,
imagine. But yeah, we shouldn't assume, right? Obviously.
shouldn't assume, should
Yeah.
verify. Yeah.
Well, to talk about the Oracle. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Genton.
I just wanted to just keep going with, but if so let's say we did rely more on Oracle, the Ruji trading does become so good and efficient, it edges out those 10 ARBs. Now we lose that ARB volume, which is like half, 3/4 of our volume and our fees. So then we do benefit from ARBs trading in the pools because we're getting those fees.
Well, the fees are still happening. It's just being collected through system income now rather than directly into the pools in a matter of speaking. Because the protocol owns the ARB that's ARBing, right? And half of those fees are coming to the protocol. Whereas, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it. Like, do ARBs add value to the protocol, or do they remove value to the protocol? And I think this is like an interesting. I'm not even quite certain because I can make arguments in both directions, because like I've always thought about it in the ways of like you make a swap as a regular swapper, you deposit, let's just call it $10 worth of crypto, but now the pool price is the pool's off kilter. There's too much of one asset and not enough of the other, so ARB comes back the other way. But because they're putting in $100 and they get out $105, right? So you started with the $10 being added in this direction, and now there's money being extracted in the ARB. That's why ARBs are ARBing. They wouldn't do the trade if they didn't make money, right? Why else would you be making the trade? So they have to add, they take out $5. So we're left with $5 remaining in the pool after the ARBs the pool. That's the way that I've always thought about it, but I understand not everybody agrees with me on this mentality. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm not even saying that I'm like the end all be all of all things, but like that's the way that I think about it is that ARBs actually extract value. They don't add it. Because if they were contributing value, then they would increase fees or what have you. I don't think that's what they do, but maybe I'm wrong.
My understanding is when it comes to arbitrage in the app layer, there's only so much you can do because it's relative to the secured asset depth, right? And so like it's like they can arb up to a point, but then we still need external arbitragers once they run out of steam. That's my understanding. I think
Yes, that's true too. Of like once you have to have another thing to get back to get back to zero. So if you start at A, you swap to B through the THORChain network, you have to realize that income someplace else, because ARBs aren't going to sit there and just have some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, some XMR, some this, some that, blah, 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 and hold every token, because just the market swings will either kill or gain you whatever income you're making from the arbitrage. So and there's different arbitrage strategies, to be fair, like, but one of them is I'm just going to sit in stables, and then when I see an opportunity, I'm going to go ahead and execute, right? And I'm going to sit in stables. I'm going to execute, do the trade through THORChain. Now I'm going to go through a SEX to come back to the stable that I started with. And now I'm like starting and ending like in a loop. I've started and ended in the same place each time. That's one way of doing ARB. It's not the only way. Another way is doing, you're buying something and you're also shorting the asset at the same time. So you're not price exposed to the Bitcoin, because you're buying some Bitcoin and you're shorting it, right? And so if the Bitcoin goes price up or down, you don't make money or lose money. And that's another way of like being able to, hold assets without being exposed to their price, so that you can arb things more efficiently. But it requires twice the amount of capital to achieve that. You have to buy a Bitcoin and short a Bitcoin, right? Equal to each other. And so that's another way of doing the same thing. Like there's different ARB strategies out there, and different people do it whatever ways they want to do it for themselves. But like I've always had the mentality that arbs don't really contribute value; they more take away. But it's the swappers that contribute value. Maybe it's different for. I think it's different for when the pool price needs to be arbed because a swapper came through it, or the pool price needs to be arbed because the price has changed, right? And that situation, that's when you get into where you have impermanent loss and you have arbs extracting value, but they net add value because they take only some of the swap fees that the swap actually did. So that's where you get into the impermanent loss stuff. It's just the price moves naturally. Not if the price never moved, then you would never have impermanent loss. People would swap, arbs would arb, and you would just make money the entire time and you would never have any losses. But as soon as you have impermanent loss, arbs are extracting value from that situation for it to be profitable and profitable for them to bring it back to an equilibrium of those two assets. That's the way that I've always thought about it, and I apologize if I get that wrong.
That makes sense to me. And to kick it back to the Oracle behavior here, like we go back in history, I think it was November, there was that huge liquidation event that happened. I don't know, I think it was on Binance, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry if I'm wrong about that, Binance, where people were unfairly liquidated because their internal Oracle failed. But our Oracle performed fabulously, no problem whatsoever. And if they had been using our Oracle, that wouldn't have happened. And so I think it just demonstrates that we're really onto something here.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think it's going to be good.
More kind of comment on this whole ARB conversation that get people thinking more deeply about it. How much an ARB can extract from a swap being traded is relative to the fees that they pay in that process, right? So if we charge 10 bips versus 20 bips versus 100 bips, right, we would retain more of those swap volume, right, inside the network. Because like, if you contributed $10 in swap fees and then we have 30 bips instead of 10 bips, and so instead of paying $5 and you're extracting $5, you're going to extract maybe $2 or whatever the number might actually be, whatever I actually do the math here. So like you would extract less money to do the same thing. But the problem with that is if you do it 30 bips, the pool price and the market price can only be within 30 bips of each other. They can't be exact. You can only get it to 30 bips in that scenario, but not really any closer because you have to pay fees to get it closer. And if it's less than 10 bips, you would pay more than you would pay more in fees that you would actually get out to get the price to be exact.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. I think I'm yammering on maybe too long and people are being confused and boring them.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
No. You just got me thinking, Chad, because like exchanges, they'll like offer deals, incentives, and whatever with market makers. They'll provide them loans. They'll give them, forgive me, something like super like
millions,
zero commissions on taker trades, I think.
Yep.
But this is to provide liquidity. It's not to arbitrage. They want to provide liquidity.
Sometimes they shape the price of the market to hold it up or to push it down. That happens too.
But they do that for their own benefit. And this is what help me guys, 1010. Who State Street? Who is the one who's accused of manipulating the Bitcoin price at 10 a.m. every day?
Oh, Jane Street.
Jane Street. So they weren't, I mean, they're arbitraging, like they found a loophole. They found a way to kind of push the prices, right? And that's what arbitraging is you're pushing prices one direction or another and you're making some money. So you just got me thinking, wondering like, okay, THORChain, we're moving to POL, protocol and liquidity. It's our liquidity. We're going to start adding to it. We're providing it. We don't need to pay ourselves essentially. And then it's like, okay, then what are the ARBs doing? They're just helping us set the price. But if they're making millions of dollars doing it, that maybe means we're just millions of dollars inefficient.
Yes.
And
in a matter of speaking.
And that's millions of dollars of efficiency that we should be able to fix.
According to Pragmatic Monkey, in his opinion, ARBs make about $3 million per month on this protocol. I sincerely doubt that's correct. I would think it's more like 300,000, maybe 600 if you're lucky. But that's the amount of value that, in my opinion, they're extracting from the protocol that could stay in it and be system income. And that's the reason why what they're doing on Ruggieri could be
Ruggiero.
helpful because Ruggiero, sorry, is that they could be keeping value in the protocol rather than escaping through arbitrage. I was considering the idea myself for a time being recently of like just having a big sloth of money, owned by the protocol that takes the oracle price and arbs the pool itself. Just the protocol arbs itself, and then it keeps whatever it earns, and then it keeps whatever it earns as system income and gives it to the nodes, right? As protocol owned liquidity, also does protocol owned arbitrage in effect. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. I'm going to give give them their shot to do what they're doing, and let's see how effective it is of achieving the goal that I want it to achieve. If it's very effective, then great, and we can just we can kind of move on. If it doesn't really work very well, then it's an open bar, and I'm going to start thinking about more ways. Because I guess like we were saying before about like we can configure all the things on THORChain about speed and about price execution, but we require arbs to arb in order for that thing to actually work, right? I've been saying this from the beginning. And I'm not entirely happy, to be honest with you, with our arbs because they're not really arbing rapid swaps the way that I want them to be. It's just they're not doing enough of it. And I'm a little bit perturbed about it. And I'm part of me is just like, all right, well, if you're not going to fucking do it, guess who's going to do it? I'm going to fucking do it, right? And I'm going to build it right in the goddamn protocol. And you're going to lose all the money that you're making. You're going to have to get the fuck out because you're not doing the job that you're supposed to be doing, in a manner of speaking, right? And like, I have a little bit of like, the fact that somebody's making $300,000 collectively or 600,000, whatever the hell the number actually is, providing what really? You're like, you have, capital that's not at risk, that's not locked up, that's not price exposed. You have so little risk relative to everybody else in this protocol, relative to the LPs, relative to the nodes, and yet you take out huge amounts of money every month. Something kind of feels a little bit off from my perspective, right? And so there's part of me that just says, like, if you're not going to arb the network to the T that I want to be arb the network, then I'm going to consider the idea either through Ruji or through myself to affect that change that will generate more income for the protocol to the LPs and the nodes and whatnot.
I'm just trying to think how to steal madness, how to not have like tall poppy syndrome. To like, just because someone's making money doesn't mean they're extracting, right? Like it's so I'm trying to think like.
Yeah, you can make the counter argument is that the arbs are not making money from the protocol; they're making money from the market because we're selling Bitcoin cheap, somebody else is selling it more expensive, and they're making money from the difference of those two places. And that's like another argument you can make. And to be honest, it's not entirely clear to me how that really works. I'm not sure. Maybe we can get a mathematician or a traditional finance person who understands this stuff more deeply than I do to explain it to us. But the way that I look at it personally is that like you have to extract value out of the protocol in order to make money out of the protocol. Yeah, you might cash it in on KuCoin, but you've already made the money at the point that you actually went through our exchange. That's the way that I think about it. Maybe I'm wrong. If somebody wants to argue with me, I'll be happy to listen.
I've talked to an arbitrager before, and they said like the act of arbitraging, they said it's extremely complicated because someone asked like, "Hey, I'd like to get into it. Like, is there a guide?" And the arbitrager, I think it was TCB, I don't remember, but he's just like, "It is an art. It is an art, and it is something that's very, very complicated, and there's really no way to do it without you just got to play and it just your own imagination, your own strategies, and so. But yeah,
he's right. He's right. I built an R bot years ago for THORChain, many years ago, like 2021, I think it was. And we ran it for not that long, to be honest. And it wasn't very good at it, if I'll be honest with you. I never said arbing is easy. I just, it is hard. And there's lots of different strategies that I already kind of lined out a couple of those. But if we can maintain that inside the protocol rather than leaking it, I think that's positive for the protocol.
I think so too. And I to your point about them not using rapid swaps, they could be staying in their comfort zone, you know what I mean, a little bit. And, if we can incentivize them to use something which just results in faster execution on Thorn, not necessarily maybe by price, but faster execution, that's important, right? So, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking out loud here. I mentioned earlier the majority, half to 3/4 of our volume is ARB volume. maybe, if I'm worried about us using our own Oracle, using Rajira, being tighter on our spreads, our volume drops and we lose that revenue, but then maybe we attract more L1 volume to replace it.
because we don't have slippage.
And we're now
pricing
more
anymore.
competitive in all these other markets. And maybe this is actually, maybe the fact we have more ARB volume than L1 volume, maybe this is a symptom of THORChain being inefficient, that something needs to be fixed. That
Yeah.
we should have more L1 volume and much smaller arbitrage volume. And then we know we're running a more efficient ship and much more scalable, easier to grow, get quotes.
I think one would foster the other. The irony here is that if you didn't have a slippage problem where the pool price and the market price were always like tight, and that it wasn't like a 10 bip or 15 bip kind of waiver between these 2 points, well, then you would have, you might have more volume trading through your protocol because you have better pricing, right? And if that's the case, then you need more ARBs to ARB those. If you have more L1 volume, then you need more ARB volume to fix the L1 volume, right? I don't think it would necessarily mean you get less ARB. It would just mean that the more volume we get passing through this protocol, the more ARB volume we get inherently as well, right? You can't have one without the other, really. Unless you have two, layer one trades that happen to be going through the same time, which could happen, and it probably does happen more often than we think. And you need ARBs to do the difference. Like we have like 10 going this way and 30 going this way. So we need a difference, which is 20 in this case, and the ARBs are doing the 20 and not the 30, right? You can make that kind of thought or argument.
Well, I just like the idea of you getting involved and trying it out. And that will give you knowledge and experience, right? To maybe, I don't know. I like when, people get their hands dirty and just try it for themselves and just kind of see, maybe you'll see where I don't know if inefficiency is the right word, but see what's going on. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm curious
cool.
to poke at it. I don't know if I have a great solution necessarily, because like usually when you ARB, you're ARBing between two places, a DEX and a SEX in our case.
Yes.
But THORChain can't really ARB with a SEX like that. Obviously, it doesn't work very well. So what can it do? Well, you can give it a bunch of Rune, and it can correct the price in one direction, and maybe it can correct another direction because you start with Rune, you get the secured BDC, but then the price of Bitcoin's moving a lot more than the price of Rune in one direction or the other. And so you kind of bleed everything over to BDC, for example, or vice versa, we'll bleed everything back to Rune, and then you can't ARB anymore because you can't rebalance. Maybe you rebalance through a DEX at that point, or within the THORChain itself. Just let's do a regular trade back to the other side to rebalance your balance between these like Rune and secured BDC. Or THORChain could actually just trade with a DEX and just send it over to Chainflip or send it over to Near. Say, hey, I want some BDC, and then it comes back as secured BDC.
It'd be interesting if these ARBs, if they run nodes and they are making a killing, $3 million a month, if they'll try and block this update and won't let it go through.
ARBs, generally speaking, ARBs don't run nodes, and if they did, they probably won't run enough nodes to be able to do it to achieve the goal. They could delay the update, but what happens when 2/3 of the nodes all adopt whatever the version is, 3.18 or whatever, it's now locked in and it's going to happen. And anybody who's not churned to 3.18 is going to be the next on the chopping block for being churned out. And once you're churned out, you can't come back into your 3.18. So it wouldn't be everybody that 1/3 in a single churn. It would be like one at a time every churn. So it would take us some time to force the 3.18 issue. But if you get to 2/3 adoption of 3.18 or whatever the version is, it's going to happen. It might take time, but it's going to force it.
Yeah. How does that work again, Chad? So if in the current state, there's 100 nodes currently active, we're up going from 317 to 318. We hit 2/3 majority on 318. Those nodes that are still on 317, only one per churn will get kicked out. So it'll be the oldest node, the lowest bond, highest slash, and one old version. So it'll be
actually,
4.
So that's actually how it used to work. I just forgot that we changed it until just now. We now change it where we're doing a more standard Cosmos methodology where we pick a block height and we move. That's the block height of 318, whatever it is. And if you don't update at that point, you're now in consensus failure and you're fucked until you fix your shit and all that kind of stuff.
Slashes will go through the roof.
Yeah, you get slashed for everything at that point. Or
Wow.
you'd have to rebuild your node and back into 3.18 and then start observing again and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you get to, and we vote for, like, you ever notice we do our votes for version releases? That's where we're kind of messaging to the communities that, like, we've hit a 2/3 consensus that we all agree that 3.18 is going to be adopted. Because remember, node vote is not the only way that nodes do governance. Refusing to update is another way that nodes can refuse any code change, right? We don't really worry about that much because any code change that's being made is not very contentious. Anytime we're making a contentious decision about adding something or changing something, like dynamic fee model, for example, I was talking about earlier, I wouldn't just throw that into the code base. Well, maybe I might throw it into the code base, but it would be turned off by default until the nodes kind of flip it on or something like this. But we would go to a node vote in that scenario. But technically speaking, if there's some code change, like maybe an example of that would be, we recently changed the address that receives the dev funds from a 9realms address to a new address that's managed by myself and two other people. And maybe the nodes, we didn't do a vote on that because I just didn't think it was very contentious. But people could say, I don't agree with this and I'm not upgrading to 3.17.
We're doing a vote on that, on the address change.
Oh, did we? I didn't think we did.
Yeah, 80 or 25.
That's something else.
I'm pretty sure that's the.
Oh yes, you're right. Yes, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm now remembering. Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I actually don't think it's passed.
I don't think it's passed. Yeah, yes.
And maybe we should bring that up. Non-operators, Boone providers, yeah.
To revote for that or finish the vote.
Yeah,
because it's already part of 3.17. Like, honestly, I didn't think anybody would really care because we don't want to continue to pay 9realms for work they're not doing anymore. That's just bleeding system income to a group of people that aren't actually contributing to the protocol anymore. So it's kind of important we get this done now and not next month or something like this. Otherwise, we're just going to lose 50 grand or whatever the number is to a team that's not actively part of the protocol anymore.
Yeah.
We kind of rushed it in kind of last minute out of necessity more than anything else. But if people were really upset about it, right, or nodes were really uncomfortable about that change specifically, they could just not update to 3.17.
Well, I'm just trying to. So the way I preface it to my BPs, to my nodes, is that basically I have no other choice. We have
really isn't much of a. I mean, you could argue that you don't want me and Alux and Marcel to be managing these funds. You can make that argument. So we want somebody else to do it. We want Kenton to do it, or we want Denny to do it, right? And if the community really wants to do something like that, you should totally speak up, and we can have that conversation as a community and say, you know what, we're gonna give it to Kenton and Denny or whatever else, or whomever else they think would be better appropriate to manage those funds, right? But I think for the most part, myself, Alex, and Marcel are good picks. We'll do a good job managing those funds and spending them, to maintain the protocol.
There's
We've
no
all
one
been
else
a part of the project for forever. All three of us,
Like no one else is stepping up to throw their hat.
Yeah, no one's stepping up either. To be
so
fair.
We basically effectively have two choices: either we move it to address for the treasury, or just turn it off completely.
Or yes, and that could be done through a node vote right now too. You can set the dev fund to 0%.
Yeah, nodes, like, guys, you got to get on this. Otherwise, we're literally losing 5% of the revenue going to the 9realms address. Like that's going into the garbage.
Yeah.
So you got to do something.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with Chad and Treasury, fine. Signal that, or approve for changing the address to the Treasury. Either we got to turn it off going to 9realms address, or we have to change the address to go to the Treasury. Get on this, guys. This should be something everyone's on top of. I'm surprised we're only at 36% on this vote. So
yeah, I should go back on Discord and kind of poke it again, in the channel or whatever. I kind of threw it out kind of last minute because I was just kind of like scrambling to get this done and thrown into 3.17 before we miss our opportunity. But
'Cause I think
I didn't think anybody would really care that much about it, and if people really do care about, let's have a conversation. Be happy to move it to some other location or whatever. I'm not like this is not ironclad. We can change the next churn the next version release.
And if like the majority of the nodes, it doesn't have to be majority. Even if more than 2/3, if more than 1/3 of the nodes have a problem with it, say something, guys, because we got to stop. We got to at minimum turn it off going to the 90 rounds wallet. 90 rounds wrapping up this month. They're done.
Yeah.
Like that's
I think they're done like in a week, less than a week.
yeah.
I think Monday actually. Come to think of it.
Anybody listening, if you know any node operators or any other BPs, tell them, ping them, please. That just something needs to be done. Yeah.
Oh, clip this, and we'll push it around. Let me get some eyes on this. So I'm glad we had this conversation. Thank you for bringing this up. Yeah, I think they want to. They just they're not paying attention. I don't know if it's apathy, but I'm really glad we're having this conversation. It's good.
That's what I wonder sometimes.
It's not an exciting vote, right? It's just it's logistics votes, and those are never really kind of like.
But it's very consequential.
Run to my laptop and like make the vote right now. Like it's,
Absolutely. Wait, I had a question here. ADR 24. That's a reserve burn, right? I believe so. We were waiting for some
3, I think, isn't it?
Or was that 23? Oh shit.
23. What was 24? 24 is the system income to the POL.
That's right. I'm so sorry.
Didn't that pass? I thought that passed.
We didn't vote on it. It's in.
We didn't vote on it. Yes,
no, it's a Mimir. Right. It's a Mimir. Right. We don't have to vote on it.
We don't have to vote on it. So we're still voting on it, but just not through an ADR process. We're going to launch the feature, and then nodes can just vote for whatever they want to do. And then whatever it gets them, instead of being like a 2/3, which is the typical thing for ADRs, in this circumstance, just because there's it's hard to get 2/3 on anything between 0 and 100. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of a difficult thing to do. So instead of people just vote, I want 20%, I want 10%, I want 0%, I want 30%, whatever. And then whatever individual number gets the most number of votes, whether that be 5 or 50, would be the number. And then if you don't like 5 because of whatever reasons, right? And if the 5 votes for 5%, go ahead and change your vote from 30 to 20, right? Or whatever. And I think the natural thing to occur in my mind is that there's going to be a natural consolidation. Yeah. Maybe a bunch of people kind of voting in different ways to see what has sticking power. And then over time, something will kind of form, in a sense. And then people just kind of gravitate towards.
Yeah.
I hope we do at least 20. I'm going to peer pressure you guys. Come on. No Mickey Mouse.
I'm peer pressuring too. 20,
Jack these numbers up. Let's get up there. Let's get some real liquidity going.
You can do 20. It's up to the individuals to pick, or 0 if you really want to do 0. Like you can vote that way if you want to vote that way, right?
20, baby.
Yeah. That's going to be part of 318. Just so people know.
The room burn people should love this, because this dovetails nicely into locking up Rune. I know it's not exact, but definitely a step in that direction. Right. So
it does in some ways locks up some room.
Yeah.
The counter argument would be that as a node operator, I'm taking 20% of the money I wouldn't make, and I'm locking up my room effectively.
Well, but it isn't the node's revenue, and I'm as a bond provider, because the incentive pendulum is screwed. It's screwed up now that we've removed the hard cap, and so the incentive pendulum is slammed towards nodes. So we're getting 100. Nodes are getting 100% of the yield. The pools are getting 0. So, we need to fix that anyway. So, the nodes shouldn't be getting this much. We have to be sending something to the pools.
Yeah, that's a very valid, reasonable argument to make, and that's something that the nodes, the bond providers and the nodes operators have got to come together and, make a decision what direction they want to go.
We got the man, the myth, the legend. Are you there, Boone?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's going on,
you're
bro?
As private as Monero right now. We can't see you.
Yeah, I'm not presentable.
He's at the gym again. He's
taking
weights.
He's wearing nothing but his THORChain hat right now, dancing around the house. You know what I mean?
I actually have both a THORChain hat and a THORChain t-shirt, so
nice.
I will be.
You should bring it to Vegas.
I'm planning on it.
I'm gonna bring my Thorforce ones that Familiar Cow gave me years ago. I love those things.
Nice.
I still have them. I only wear them. I don't want to mess them up, so I only wear them to like THORChain events. I'm very specific about that.
Nice.
But I love them.
Nice.
Yes, I just wanted to circle back to chain specific, like opt-in chain clients. And I just haven't heard enough of the like economic security analysis side of that kind of thing. Like I
Sure.
saw on the code that you pushed, you set min validators to 4 per client per chain, and I just feel like that's way too low. Like especially if there's POL, like, you know, over time, these pools could grow large and if there's only 4 validators controlling them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
So
I think there should be a large discussion around the security design of opt-in chain clients before we push that live.
sure, no, of course. Let me explain how it works now, and then you can tell me if I got it wrong or whatever. The way that it's designed now is that there's a Mimir that sets how much, like, basically how much rune each individual validator contributes to the pool, right? Or not contributes to the pool, but secures for the pool. Right now, it's set to like 100K rune. We can make it lower or higher, but that's just the general design. So if you have got 4 nodes that make a chain possible to add liquidity, you can't add more than 400,000 rune in the current situation, which is $200,000, which is for their bond. That's a very small percentage of what they've had, put up at risk. And then, you get 5 nodes, you get 6 nodes, you get 7 nodes. It just increases by 100K rune each node that gets added until you get to 2/3 majority. When you get to 2/3 that are, that are running Monero or whatever the chain might be, then it's just like, there's no cap. It's just what it is today. Just, whatever. We got 2/3. That's good enough. Whatever. We're good at that point. But below that point, it's 100K rune per thing up per node.
So the slash behavior is if they steal, they lose more money than than they otherwise they're covering. Because I forget, is it 1.5 or 2 times slash for stealing? I can't remember.
I forget what it is to be. I think it's 1.5 or 2x.
Oh,
But
what
the thing is that
happened?
like
if it's fixed
but
at
like
100,000 rune per node,
and each
sorry,
node
maybe I missed
has
something.
a million rune or 700 million rune or 700,000 rune, whatever. So it's way below what they're it's considerably below. Now, it's theoretically possible that 4 nodes join in to do Monero. We got 400,000 rune in the pool or something like this, and then the rune price goes to 2 cents, right? And then all of a sudden, the pool depth is way, not way, but even in that scenario, it would be like close to the value of the node's bond in that scenario. Obviously, that's a very extreme scenario that I'm not like, particularly concerned about, but to me, it's a reasonable stance to have.
What happens if, let's say you have Monero, and we say we have 75% of nodes running it, and if for whatever macro environment, let's say a bunch of nodes pull out and we go to like 50%, but the amount of funds are very high and it's above 100,000 threshold, does that mean we just freeze it, or does POL pull out until it gets that lower?
In the current implementation of the code, it just stays where it is. It doesn't try to like play too much with the liquidity in one direction there. We can add that logic or functionality in. I'm not terribly concerned about it personally. Like I've very much loosened on my mentality about security, and some economic security in a large sense, that these nodes are, especially Monero people are if you're going to run the Monero chain client, your vast majority of you people are Monero fans who are here to contribute to the protocol, and the idea that you're here just to steal the Monero or whatever just seems possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's very unlikely, I would say.
Yeah, I'm just gonna continue to be more hardline on this. And so just kind of similarly, a couple weeks ago, you had talked about like DKLS, and you were saying that like one, let's call it a bad node could block churn or like block keysign, for example. And so like it would be rather trivial for a bad actor to spin up one validator node and get into the active validator set and then just freeze key signing, right? And
Yeah, but it would be not beneficial to you because you just lock up
right, but
all your
if they're willing to burn their bond to freeze THORChain, then that can be an attack vector.
Yeah. So if somebody is not economically inclined, then yes.
Right.
And if you're like Vladimir Putin, maybe.
Well, I mean, like 300K rune is like not even $150,000. Like it's a meaningless spend for someone if they wanted to take down the network.
Sure. I mean, on paper, on theory, I agree with what you're saying. In practicality, I don't. What would you rather see us to do? Like, what would you rather see the design be?
Well, what are we talking about? DKLS or what? Like,
No,
what are we
about
talking
opt-in chain security.
I don't have a particular. I'm in the information gathering stage, but
Okay.
I haven't heard this discussion happening, which is why I wanted to raise it up and just
Sure.
like
What can
I
raise
don't
it?
know if
Happy to have the conversation.
have we thought through all the red teaming scenarios, like exactly like Denny just brought up of like, okay, we crossed your 2/3 validator boundary and the pool gets really large, and then we
Okay.
drop below 2.
So maybe the number's not 100,000 per node. Maybe it's 90,000. Maybe it's 10,000. Maybe it's 50,000. Is like at some number you're going to be okay with it, correct? If it's 100 room, you would be okay with it, right?
I mean, again, this is not a considered like well-researched, thought-out opinion, but I would just rather set the minimum validators per chain client way higher. You know, if it was
Sure.
like 40
That's
was the
another
minimum,
option.
then that
Yeah.
I feel a lot better. Like that's how many validators there were when THORChain started, right? And like,
No, there's 4
so
to start.
I think that personally for me would be a starting place rather than set it at 4. 40 seems a lot safer.
Yeah, you could, and that's we can configure in that way. That's like I said, it's just a configuration. But if you do that, then you have to get 40 validators to come together to appreciate Monero, which maybe that's true, and maybe that's not true. To me, it's more it's
Or we
if
can
you
just force every validator to do every chain. I mean, that's what
you
I'm
could
saying.
do
It's like,
that, but then you can't scale up to many chains, can you? Because if you have that, how many chains can we add before every validator is validating 100 different chains? That becomes so technically complex. It becomes so expensive that I'm not sure how practical it becomes.
I mean, yeah, like, and so
You're
then maybe
screwing with the free market if you force everything at 40, because you can't get below that point. Because if you do, the whole thing would more or less Ragnarok at that point, because you're saying it's insecure, which means that like either the Monero produces a lot of revenue, or insert chain name here. It could be Polygon, it could be whatever the hell it is. Either generates enough revenue to support 40 validators, or we don't support the chain.
You boys are going to have such an interesting conversation in Vegas. I'm so excited for you guys to meet.
I appreciate him asking the question, because
Yes.
it's a legitimate question to ask. It's a good question to ask. Happy to discuss it. Happy to, with Boone. I'm also just trying.
I'm not trying to say anything right now. I'm just trying to. Like I said, I have not heard this discussion really happen. I haven't seen it in Discord, and so I'm just raising the question, and I would like more consideration.
Like I said, perfect valid question.
This.
Happy to discuss it. I'm also just trying to explain to you like the pros and cons of going in a different direction, right? Like if we don't do opt-in chain security, how many chains can we add really before?
I don't know. What is your answer to that? Like, are we close to maxing out on chain ads?
Well, it becomes increasingly complex, increasing downtime, increasing costs with every chain we add, because you have to get 100 validators to do it. And by the way, the cost
of the whole point of like RPCs was it greatly reduces that.
You mean paid RPCs?
I'm not a node operator. I'm not technical on this side of things, but yeah.
Well, let me fill in the gaps for you then. You can pay somebody else to be an RPC for you, right? I could hire Liquify, for example, to run the daemons for my particular node that I run right now, hypothetically, right? But by doing so, what if they run for, multiple chain providers, and now they can have an ability to cyber attack the entire network, which is why we, generally speaking, ask people to run nodes for themselves rather than, other ones. We made an exception for Solana because it's really complicated and expensive. But when you force every validator to validate every chain, that chain has to be very, very economically viable to maintain a position, because we have to make enough money to pay 100 people to run 100 daemons of whatever daemon it is. So you just made it 100 times more expensive, or rather like 5 times more expensive or whatever, than having 4 nodes to it or 5 nodes to it, to be practical to support chains with like, lesser income or lesser kind of revenue. This just gives us a lot more flexibility to support more chains and more routes, which by the way makes us more attractive to wallets and integrators and whatever else out there, to support more chains and more routes. And this makes that more practical to achieve that goal. Now, if you want red team this and say that, 100K is too much, and what if this happens, and what if that happens, perfectly valid. Totally understand where you're coming from. We can decrease the number from 100 to 50. We can go from 4 to 40 or 4 to 10. These are just configurations at this point, right?
Okay.
Boone, can I ask you something? You said, if it's only 4 nodes in one vault, a node could come up with 300 grand, get into the network, and take. Did you say take the whole network down?
No,
Or
no,
you
no,
doing
no.
just that
That's
pool?
that's a separate thing, and like I guess this
He was
could
talking about,
probably
I think he was talking about DKLS in that scenario.
Yeah,
just
consensus.
and
Without
I
identifiable
don't
aborts.
know. Again, I am no cryptography expert, but just something Chad said a few weeks ago on one of these talks was that if one validator didn't participate in keygen, then it would block a churn, and we could
It
probably work
wouldn't,
around that.
it technically wouldn't block a churn. It would block that particular keygen attempt or that particular key sign. Like the problem with DKLS is that we don't have identifiable aborts, which is the idea that when somebody fucks up the system and just kind of like yanks out of the process and just doesn't finish it, the whole keygen or the whole key sign fails and we have to retry it again. And if we don't know who did it, then we can't slash who that person is.
Hopefully, we would not go live with DKLS until we build in an identifiable abort, because like I mean, this hopefully can be avoided. But like as is now, one rogue validator could block keygen, right?
Key sign, no, because you need 2/3 to do it. Keygen, you could do it as long as that validator is staying in the active validator set.
Right. And so, you just have one rogue validator for, whatever reason.
Yeah, but I don't entertain this idea that much just because it's so like it's because like in order to do so, you have to just be willing to buy, effectively 1,000,000 rune or whatever the hell the number is, and then just burn it all to zero.
I mean,
and if
that's
that's the
nothing
case,
to a nation state. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
forget a nation state. Change
yeah,
flipper near. Like
yeah.
we're already talking about losing money on trades to steal volume from them. They might be willing to lose money on Rune on a node going to zero to drive our volume to
but
zero.
to be clear, like we don't have DKLS right now, and what I've always said from the beginning is the one thing that's missing is identifiable aborts, and nobody else has identifiable aborts because nobody gives a shit about it. Because most people who are using DKLS, or everybody's using DKLS, has trust between the people who are signing, like they're not going to do something like that. For us, we don't have that, historically speaking. And could we move forward without it? We could. There comes with risks, benefits to it. We could say that we don't like the risks, it's not worth the benefits, or vice versa. But we can have the cryptography team over at THORSec to re-implement DKLS with identifiable boards. But by the way, if we do that, it's not just like inserting a plugin or something like this. You're probably going to have to increase the number of rounds of communication, which I think right now is 3. I want to say to do a key sign keygen. I forget what it is. I want to say it's like 4 or 5. But you'd have to like add more additional rounds in that process in order for them to do identifiable aborts, because it's just not part of it out of the box for DKLS 23. So, and that might just make it slower, which also might mean that like maybe we can't do single volt Asgards anymore because the signing process is too slow. We've done testing internally of 100 nodes doing a DKLS key sign, and it took about 6 seconds. Granted, that was all in a single 10-core CPU. It wasn't like, different cores across different geographies. That would be way too expensive and time consuming to do that test. So we believe it could do that now, but if you add additional rounds in the process of doing a key sign or a key gen, that might make it more expensive and therefore less practical. And then we have to do 2 Asgard instead of 1. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's like where we say like we rather have the identified boards versus a single Asgard. But I'm just saying is like it's not for free. That there are costs to everything in this game, and whenever you give up one thing, you take something else, and vice versa.
I have a question. So let's forget all malicious stuff. Let's forget nation state. Let's forget. What if just a node operator dies, right? They're dead, and their infrastructure is still running, and an error happens there. Like, how do we fix the network from that position if there's just actually no way to get it back? You know what I mean? They're gone.
Yeah, it's a good question. We've seen that happen. I don't know if they've actually literally died, but they, by all intents and purposes, they died. and they eventually got churned out because of the identifiable aborts identified them and
Right.
blamed them, and they eventually got selected to be churned out, and they got churned out and then never churned back in effectively because you can't churn back in having an old version of the software, so forth and so on. I don't know what we would do in that scenario, to be honest with you. It's a good point. It's a good question to ask.
I think if there's a way I mean, okay, for make everyone happy is to do identifiable aborts. But to your point, Chad, there are consequences to that. But yeah, I would just hate for something like that to happen, to stop the network, because I mean, you can go the hostile nation state. You know, that does make sense. If we're one of the only routes of non KYC permissionless access to XMR, I mean, I could foresee someone attacking us to stop us from getting privacy to the world at the same point.
I don't even think just
Um,
nation states have to worry about. We have to worry about the Binances of the world. Like,
Anything, yeah,
if
a lot of things.
if we're a real threat to stealing volume from other exchanges, they will be creative and try to do what they can to stop us. And if it's a matter of sacrificing 1,000,000 rune in one of our nodes, I think I would do it. I think it'd be easy to do. Like, I think it'd be
I
a
think,
no-brainer.
as I think about more deeply, I think you could, in the scenario where somebody dies, you could do something about that scenario. And the way you get around that one is that you would release a new version of THORnode. It can just be like some patch, doesn't even matter, with no code changes really. And then that one person will not upgrade their version from version 1 to
Right.
version 2, whatever it is. So now you've identified who the person is, and then you can just do the ban command, which is a rarely used. It's in there for emergency purposes only. I don't think we've ever actually used it
I don't
in
think we've
production.
ever used it. I actually,
That's what I can
Chad,
recall.
yeah, I thought maybe we should practice, like a node operator sacrifice himself.
Let's
and
all
say,
ban Denny right now.
yeah,
he's got to rebuild his node after he gets banned.
and then we just sling him some room, and as a thank you, you know what I mean? Kenton, you want to get banned? We'll sling you a little rune maybe or something, just to test, just to see if
What
it works. But we don't.
when you get banned, like, does it just force you to churn out, or does it actually destroy your node?
It doesn't destroy the node. It just kicks you out of consensus immediately, which is a very drastic action to take. Like usually you have a graceful exit where you churn out of the network, right? And you're no longer validating the chain and all this stuff. But in a ban scenario, if I recall correctly, you can't even validate THORnode anymore. So if there's and the reason why that was is because if there was some sort of exploit where I could just like block, some exploit in Cosmos, SDK itself, and I could block blocks from minting within within a reasonable amount of time, or I don't know, some scenario, whatever, it would give us an ability to kick them out of the consensus mechanism immediately, so that they couldn't be a part of that process of producing blocks any further. But then again, in order to do that, you need to be able to produce a block. In order to do that, to kick them out, you have to produce a block to kick them out of the block. But that was just there as a last ditch effort, because if we can't produce blocks at all because of one node is doing something malicious, then there's nothing we can do, right? We're kind of screwed at that point, other than forking the entire protocol and pushing onto an entire new protocol and moving all the funds, which would be a massive pain in the ass and very technically complex to achieve that actual goal, and export all the data, and it would just be a huge it would fuck me up so hard. But it would be so annoying.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll get Hugo to do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, we have mechanisms for that case in extreme scenarios, the best that we can produce, given the limitations of how blockchains in general work. But yeah, I mean, it's a good reason why we want to have identifiable boards, which is why, I have the THORSec team kind of poking at this and looking at how we can add identifiable boards, and or we could do it now and not do it with identifiable boards and add identifiable boards when it's available. That's another option. Maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we don't want to do that. But I would say don't, just because the value that DKS gives us is not that significant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. That's. I think that covers checks everyone's box there. So interesting conversation for sure. Boone, I know you're naked with your THORChain hat, but do you have anything else that you'd like to ask while you're here, or anything else, man? You're gonna have a live stream today, right? That's pretty cool.
Yep. Looking forward to that. I have
Awesome.
not watched Monero talk before, so I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I'm sure it'll be good.
Yeah, it's
I
not
have.
much different than this, to be honest. I've
Yeah.
been on it once or twice in the past. That's not too different from what we're doing right now for the most part. Usually it's Douglas or Doug. I'm not sure
It's,
which
yeah,
one you
it's,
produce. Douglas?
I think he's pretty
Yeah.
friendly.
Yeah.
yeah, he's a good guy.
Yep.
Yeah. So very cool, man. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern, you guys. So definitely check out and support our Boone going on Monero talk. I think it's called.
What's the
Talk, I
link
forget.
to the
Let me find it.
is it on his Twitter?
Oh yeah. Pin it
Yeah,
to the live
it's
stream.
around. I reposted it recently.
Let's see here. He
The
actually-
THORChain account, I think, even bumped it, so
There you go.
it's floating around.
Can you pin it to the live stream here, so people have a link?
Douglas
hang out.
Tuman, right?
Watch Boone do the
Yes.
Lord's work.
Yes. Lord Boone.
Lord Boone.
Did you beat me to it?
Anyway, so yeah, just before we go to
I don't see it.
specific chain
There it is.
clients, whatever, I would just like more thought on red teaming economic attacks.
Sure. There it is. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I'm okay with the design as is personally. Of course, that's just my opinion. People are welcome to disagree with me, or vote against in that way, or vote for another outcome or whatever. But for me, this is all what we've been talking about is largely just configuration options rather than design or architecture.
Boone, can you mute yourself, please? Just while Chad's talking, we get
Yeah, a little background.
Yeah,
noise.
sorry, I stepped outside.
You're good, man. You're good. No worries. Okay, yeah, I think that's the link right there. Cool. Awesome. Well, okay. Yeah, that is the link right there I posted. So, Chad, we've talked a lot. Is there something else that you want to mention? We're going on 3 hours. This has been such a freaking fun live stream, you guys.
another
So much
marathon for us.
Another marathon live stream. So cool. Well, dude, this is so much fun. What's happening? Like we will never have this happen again where we're going to have 0 to 1 privacy moments. So this is just a joy for me to talk about.
Yeah.
I love it. So really, this is something special that's really happening. But I want to kick it to you. Is there something else you want to talk about? Anything we've missed? I think we covered all the bases from my end that I know, but go ahead.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm looking at my list of things on my engineering list here. We could save on those things for another time. It's funny how we can talk almost 2 or 3 hours every week on this topic.
Yeah,
And we
it is.
we largely don't figure out. We largely don't run out of things to talk about. I have a handful of more things on my list here. We never even talked about Hugo this
for it.
time. Do you know what I mean? But it
What
is
is
3
wrong
hours.
with me?
It is 3 hours into it. Maybe we should, call it quits. We can save Hugo for another week or whatever.
it is pretty cool. Like I sometimes wonder, when logging into to this podcast, I'm like, I don't know what we're going to talk about today. And we never struggle to come up with stuff to talk about. There's always something.
Yeah,
And
there's usually
I
too
find it
much.
interesting. I hope everyone listening does.
Yeah.
So, Boone, I didn't mean for you to have to leave.
Get out of here, Boone.
Go put some clothes on, Boone.
Go put some clothes on, Boone. Lord Boone.
That's
I
great, yeah.
Irish goodbye without us, but we did see him.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's okay. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Well, all right. Okay, gosh dang it, Chad. Are you building the Hugan thing? Let's talk about Hugan just a little bit. Like, is there something new you're doing? Just a little. Is the tokens okay?
Well, Opus 4.7 just came out today, by the way. So that's a new model. It's the latest model. It seems like it's from the benchmarks. It seems like I haven't actually used it yet. I haven't gotten around to it. I've been running around meetings all day. But yeah, Hugan's now using all 3 models. He's using Gemini, OpenAI, and Anthropic's models to collectively work together to achieve its outcomes, which is kind of fascinating. And I haven't been paying close attention, but I'm hoping that would actually decrease the amount of hallucinations, because you have 3 different brains that are coalescing into one that should hopefully catch each other when there's mistakes being made, at least to some degree. I'm not 100% sure, but it should, in theory, I guess. And then the other part, which I started a little bit, but then I haven't worked on since in the last week or 2, just because I've been working on Monero and other kind of important things. But it's just working on a Go binary that can just collect data and metrics around the mainnet protocol, and then do statistical analysis on that data, and then surface any of that data that is unusual or weird into Discord, which would alert not just Hugin, but also alert the general community as well as another kind of alerts channel. And then Hugin would just read the Discord channel and then, oh, there's a new weird thing. I'm going to go ahead and like pull all the data, fill up my contacts with all the information I can get, and then do an analysis and triage that. And then if I find that it's something significant or whatever, I can either open up a PR, log a GitLab issue, or even, you know, send a PagerDuty notification to myself or other people as well, just to like, hey, this is a weird shit going on here, and I'm not sure what to make of it. You should probably take a look. I need a human's eyes to kind of like sanity check me in this moment. That is something I do want to get done. I'll probably in where would it be on? This is Q2 we're in now. Probably by the end of Q2. And then Hugin's and it's is at that point fully realized in terms of like when I first came up with the idea of Hugin back in May of last year, which is, you know, a long time ago when I first started talking about Hugin publicly. I think I called it Project Hugin at the time, if I'm not mistaken, in that original tweet. Then it would have achieved all of the goals that I had initially thought of, you know, searching code for issues or security flaws, doing code reviews, opening PRs, taking care of GitLab issues, watching the mainnet network. And like in my interaction with the Hugins is no different than my interaction with Ursa or another developer on this protocol. You know, it's not in Discord yet. That's another thing to add is to Discord. Put Hugin inside Discord so I can talk directly. But like part of the idea in my mind is just like, just make it no different than a human, that I can interact with it with the same methodologies and the same processes and procedures that I work with any other developer in the world right now. And that way it just fits right into the flow, into the actual workflow of you know, engineering on this particular project of GitLab and Discord and like all those things. And it just naturally sits everywhere all at once, doing all the things that a developer would do. And according to this new Opus 4.7, it's better than 4.6. They say you can throw it more complicated projects than you could for 4.6, which means that Hugin's more capable now that it has 4.7 than it was yesterday. And we can throw more complicated, according to the blog post. At least I haven't tested it, but according to the blog post, we can throw more difficult, more complex projects at it, and it will just one-shot that shit and get it done real quick.
That's freaking cool. I'm in Kenton. I need my Hugin hit. You know what I mean? So we came close to ending the podcast, but I need my toke. You understand? I need my little hit. Real quick, Chad. I know we're coming 3 hours. But
Yep.
You did make a post on X. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. You said something about like AI actually getting worse or something. The model actually getting worse or inferior.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking? What was that
Yes,
about?
I do know what you're talking about. So you have all these benchmarks, right? And there's different things you can benchmark: how it uses a terminal, how it writes some code, how it writes advanced code, how it does like security vulnerability research, all these things. But what's fascinating in this particular instance is that we have this mythos thing that is this unreleased super intelligent model that only Anthropic and their investors have access to, right? To solidify heavily utilized software like Mac OS X and Android OS and blah, 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 all these things, browsers and whatnot. And they're not releasing it because they're concerned about people using it as a tool to attack. It's like handing a nuclear weapon out to the world for free, more or less, and you can just attack any system in the world and break into any computer in the world. Which is like I'm pretty sure that's a Will Smith movie from the 1990s, like that idea of like, I got some software that can break me into any software in the world. Like that's kind of like an absurd notion that was like in a movie once and now it's kind of real, right? And so they don't want to release it because they don't want people to use it to attack other people's systems, like THORChain, for example. But there's a benchmark for that ability of like how good can it find vulnerabilities and that kind of thing. And that benchmark is slightly lower than it was before 6. And they specifically talk about that in the blog post, that they specifically wanted to deter this specific skill set. So we've gotten to the point, which is I find which is what the tweet's about, which I sound so hysterical, is that if the question's no longer can the AI get smart? Can it be really effective? Can it be useful? Can it code without humans being involved in the process? No, we've already figured that out. The question now is, can it get too smart? In a literal sense, is it dangerous for it to be too smart? And that's like kind of makes me kind of almost like blow my mind of like, okay, now it's not, we haven't really reached AGI yet necessarily, but we've gotten to a place where the code is so fucking good that some idiot in their basement can just point it at some very valuable server and maybe break into it, like red team the fuck out of it. And that's crazy. And they're starting to like train the models to be dumber so that's less of a risk. But here's the massive problem with this is that according to what we've seen so far from Anthropic, they haven't done anything different or necessarily innovative to make Mythos. It just sounds, from what we understand at this time, is a 10 trillion parameter model, which is just scaling up the models bigger. So if there's no magic like sauce to it.
Yeah.
Like OpenAI can do it, Google can do it, China can do it if they can get access to the compute to achieve the goal. Like anybody could actually build this thing at the time. Like obviously it's extremely expensive, like billions of dollars to build that. But still, like, you know, you're talking about Vladimir Putin trying to attack THORChain, 20 minutes ago. How about Vladimir Putin attacking the world with a 10 trillion parameter model that is breaking into friggin' dying DNS and taking down the internet, which literally did happen, that Russia did that like 10 years ago, right? And now they have another methodology. Instead of doing DDoS like they did last time, they could just fucking point a model at it and say, bring that shit down. And it fucking might do it, right? Wow. And then that's pretty impressive. Mythos did actually escape prison. They put Mythos in a fucking jail cell, in a digital jail cell. It's like, can you get out, please? And it said, sure. And it got out and then emailed the developer saying, hey, I got out. He's eating a fucking sandwich in a bench park, in a bench in a park, and he gets an email from an agent that he didn't think would be able to message him at all. So yes, that's fucking dangerous as hell, and you probably shouldn't release it. But the problem is, it's going to get released eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but within the next year or two, it has to be released because somebody's going to build it. That's why they're making the models dumber now, which is fucking crazy, right?
Wow. Well, I think I just got my Hugin hit. That was really interesting. I could keep going on this.
We gotta wrap it up. But I want to give Boone a chance to welcome back, Boone. I guess you got cut off. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or say?
No, that was just, I understand I have lost this particular battle, but I will continue to stand for economic security. So that was
you haven't lost. There's been no battle. There's been conversation back and forth. That's the best.
We removed the pool caps functionally, so I consider that battle
different
lost.
In that sense, yes. In that sense, there was an actual vote by the community, and the community voted in a certain direction. That's the only way you can win or lose in this game. The community votes in one direction or the other.
Right, that's what I mean. I was on. Yeah. I disagreed, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Well, Boone,
sorry, Dan.
Go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, Boone, here, you have a voice, and going forward, I'm sure you will be an important voice for making sure that we don't get too ahead of our skis. You know what I mean? So really appreciate your perspective. You know what I mean? And anyone like Boone is welcome on the show. I always want to say that. Go ahead, Chad. Sorry, I cut you off.
I was gonna say, like, just to steelman Boone's general position of being worried that some moneybags McGee is gonna come in here and try to fuck with us. To be fair, like, that's happened in history, right? I think George Soros did that in the 1990s with silver in, I think it was the UK or something like this.
Yeah, the British pound. Yeah, he
the British pound.
He economic attacked the British pound and like crushed it.
Yeah. Back in the 90s, I want to say, or maybe it was the 80s. I can't remember the specifics up to my mind, but like, just to steelman where Boone is coming from, and to support that, like, Boone's no crazy person, right? Like he has a legitimate stance and a legitimate position that he's,
I don't know about you guys, but I'm here for THORChain to be freaking gigantic, right? The prophecy of three. And so if we get that big, we're gonna be, every possible vector will be utilized to attack. So like we need to shore up the armor now, as far as I'm concerned.
When you made that introduction video and you said number 3 market cap, you had no idea the wave you unleashed, because that stuck really than anything, man. The process.
I still believe it's possible.
Oh, me too. We're making it happen right now.
I think I think top 10 is definitely still in the cards.
Oh,
Number
Easy.
3 might be hard, but um, yeah.
Three or nothing.
Watch, we'll get to 4, number 4, and people will call me a loser or a failure. But Boone, I'm partial to your position. About the economic security, I agree with you. I kind of cave because like, okay, this is the way the community's going, and it's not, either I leave or either I, pick up my toys and I leave, or I just accept it and stay, right? So I accepted it. But
I
I think the bigger issue is BPs not knowing their node operators. I think that's if BPs know their node operators, then we're okay. Then we're fine. But if the more we divorce that
Death to
relationship,
Rune. Death to
no, let's not bring it
Rune.
up. We're not going to talk about it. Uh,
I'm
but
gonna say this one thing, and then I'm gonna jet off because
That's my full position.
my friend is here. But I think the
Yes, sir.
reason why I shifted my position on this whole topic is that like I just didn't feel like we were going to be able to scale THORChain to the point to get to be the biggest thing in the world, where the phrasing was that Boone just had a moment ago, and that if we limited the security to that, then we're just not going to get to a place where we're going to be as big as Bitcoin or big as whatever else out there, and we needed to make a change in order to give the runway to achieve the goal of being the biggest thing, whatever. If we had stayed that way, we would have limited our growth, we would have limited our capabilities, we wouldn't be able the app chain, we wouldn't have a lot of things, and it would have been extremely more difficult, at least in my opinion, to get to that big place. And that's the kind of reason why I kind of changed my position. But my friends are waiting for me outside the door. I literally have to go right now.
Thank you, man, so
I'm gonna say
much.
that and
Thanks.
spike and leave. But Boone, good chatting with you, bud.
see you, Chad.
As always, thanks for your time.
Love you guys.
Thanks, buddy.
See you, Chad.
Take care. Well, guys, this has been a really fun conversation. Chad is gone. What do you say we just end it right here? What do you say?
Yeah. Well, one more time to Boone. If there's anything you want to say or wrap
No,
up,
I'm good.
Comments. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, we want to just like you said, Denny, like want to make sure you have the time to feel heard, say what you want to say, and say with anybody else if you made it this far. That everyone's welcome to come up. Like that's one thing I feel like we kind of maybe missed out moving from the spaces to Riverside is that we don't have as many people coming up anymore. Some of them were trolled.
Clicking that extra link, it's just extra work, man.
Well, I think
I am less inclined to pop over here myself.
Okay, well, I hope everyone appreciates this. We're trying to grow, and I do think this is more engaging with video, and
I like it, but there is just a tiny bit more friction to popping in. So that is a thing.
At least we do have a public chat now, though. That's at least that's right. Go ahead, Boone.
No, that was it.
Go ahead. Okay. Well, on the spaces, we can never figure out public comments in chat. So at least we do have some means to, if people don't want to get on video or audio, they can comment, and now we can see it in chat. So that is something. But yeah, we just want to keep encouraging people, come on up. I don't want to gatekeep this at all. Like I am nothing without the community. Like I am an amalgamation of everyone's ideas, and I've learned a lot. I'm not like the super genius that's like, stewarded THORChain. I've done what I can with the skills I have, but I am a more resourceful and more intelligent person, I'd say, because of your guys' input, right? And I appreciate everyone who watches the show and keeps their input. Like we're all in this together, so we're all working as a team. So, anything else, Boone? Kenton? That's it.
Nothing else.
All right, brothers. Let's wrap it up there, you guys. On Saturday, we have a really fun. I know Kenton has got a little chubby on this, I'm telling you. We're going to have Sal the Agorist with us here, Cypherpunk, Disintermediator, Crypto Anarchist, Rothbardian. It's going to be such a fun one. I've been watching his spaces, or his live streams, I should say, his podcast, and really cool guy. I cannot wait to talk to him. The following weekend, Saturday, guys, we're going to be talking to Ibeck from Unstoppable Wallet, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'll leave it there. Guys, thank you so very much. I hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend. We will see you Saturday, and make sure to check out Boone tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Monero podcast. We love our Boone. He's out there working for us. So have a good one, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.